Good morning. It is June 4th, and I'd like to call the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners open, and note that all three commissioners are present. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The business agenda.
Are there any changes?
Nope.
I have none, Jake.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. So we'll open for public comment. In the room, please come forward and state your name. And on Zoom, when we call on you, let us know who you are and where you're from if you can. Thank you. So we'll start in the room. I saw a hand go up really quick with Mr. Smith.
Well, how's the commissioners doing this morning?
Good. Another week. How are you? You're limping.
You look like you got
Staff looks like they're happy too.
a hitch in your get along.
Mhm.
Well, you know, I tried to pass the physical test, become a correctional officer, and at 60 years old, the old muscles say we're done. And no offense to
It
the
does.
sheriff, but it happens,
Yeah.
right? Well, I will say it's been a good week. The last 9 weeks have been exciting and challenging here for the staff, and you guys can do thumbs ups and smile along for this first part. I'm happy with the commissioners on Thursday. You guys got along very well. Meeting went fairly nicely. And I'm impressed with you guys, and the staff did really good. And that includes the staff over here. I'm really happy with everybody, how everybody worked together. It was nice to see. And then I did a little research in RCWs and going through everything. And then I found out that, yeah, the sheriff here does an excellent job. I don't know the full status, but if you want to have a replacement, I was looking at even a police chief can be in charge of the sheriff or of the jail itself. And that was kind of interesting. I thought it was only the sheriff's department. And like you said, you can have the DOC check it out too. And it's just a thought for it. And then I went on noticing you guys were all up for options too. And I was happy with that. And I went through and went, wow, I did find out one group that came up for private jailing. They're called the GEO group. They're worldwide. They do have places here in the United States even. They even got the ICE building in Tacoma. So it's another thought. Just an open thought for you guys. See where you want to lead. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So online, I see WJ Morris this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. William Morris, Dallasport Water District Commissioner, Chairman, 2024, Dallasport, Washington. Today, I ask that you provide the Dallasport Water District with an update on the landfill gas fund appropriation for the ATEC treatment vessels for the Dallasport Water District. I wish to point out again that the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport does not have fire flow. If Klickitat County will not provide the landfill grant money for the ATEC treatment vessels, then the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport needs to budget for the ATEC treatment vessels so the Dallasport Water District can provide the Department of Health approved fire flow per the approved Dallasport Water District water system plan. The additional vessels are required in order to provide the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport with previously stated Department of Health fire flow requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Back in the room, does anyone else wish to give comment this morning? Come on. Good morning.
Candy Magnuson, Goldendale. I've been to a lot of meetings, and last week I was confused because we had 4 choices, but we didn't have the choice of staying the way it is, just keeping our jail open the way it is. And I happened to be at the town hall of Bob's, and the gentleman's mom that hung himself stood up and talked. And it was, if you've ever lost a child, it's heartbreaking. But she was so brave to do that. She did not say anything bad about Bob. She did not say anything about closing the jail. Everybody has a right to commit suicide. Everybody, that's your God-given right, is to commit suicide. I've been around people that have committed suicide. They will, you can watch them 24/7. The minute you walk away, they will commit suicide. As far as Paulette goes, she refused help. And like Bob says, and I know for a fact, if you grab somebody and start putting medicine down their throat besides your kids, you can do it with your kids. But that's assault, and you can't do it. And so I just don't understand. I'd like to ask the first two commissioners, Anderson and Lori, to finish my sentence. I want to close the jail because, and I don't want a paragraph. I just want the complete sentence. And then I'd like to have you say, tell us if you found out anything about the cost of closing the jail compared to cost of sending our jail over to someplace else, okay?
Thank you. Back online or on Zoom. Is there anybody else this morning? Raise your hand if you'd like to give public comment this morning. Great, Dallasport Community Council.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to say, first of all, do not close our jail. Now, one of the things that you guys have said over and over again is that we're broke. We have no money. Yet on the town hall last Thursday, you said, well, we have 4 options. Again, like the speaker before me, there isn't a 5th large option, which should have been in place and should have been researched. The 5th option should be leave the jail the way it is under the sheriff and then add 2, not 4, 2 nurses. Because 2 nurses on a 4 and 3 schedule and a 3 and 4 schedule could cover the jail. And that's what everybody's worried about when you're talking about people hanging themselves or not taking care of themselves, or it'd be better to have nurses in there, especially when we bring them in, they can be evaluated right away. But you only need 2 nurses. I know that one of the options said $750,000 because it talked about a doctor, nurses, staff, equipment. It's like, don't inflate something that doesn't need to be inflated. But you talk about us being broke, yet the only 2 options that you talked about that were viable was 2 and 3, and both of those require a Department of Corrections. Do you understand how costly a Department of Corrections is going to be to this community? I do not want my tax bill rising because you two are having a fight with the sheriff, and you're playing childish games and not looking at really what benefits this county and it's your constituents. Now, stop fighting with the sheriff and start looking at what's really going to help us here. He has done a wonderful job at the jail. The only you talk about 1 death in 10 years. Well, if you go back and look at Norcor, I believe they have 3 to 4 deaths in the last 10 years. And one of their correction officers of sexual abuse. So what you're telling us is we want to ship our people over to Norcor where they're either going to be abused or whatever else, which is ridiculous. Again, do the 5th one and look at the money because it's already being spent. You already have somebody in charge, so you don't need a DOC director, which is very expensive for directors. And then you're going to have somebody doing the books. So there's another expense when you have the sheriff and then you have Karen, and she's been doing the books just fine. So if you know, if you're really looking out for our constituents, you should really invest in keeping the jail the way it is and adding to nurses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back in the room. Delmer. Good morning.
Delmer Eldred, Goldendale. I believe that Commissioner Anderson and Zoller should be removed from office. They have violated the trust of their positions. They have been dishonest. They have lied from the very beginning of the jail issue and have used it to pursue vindictive acts because of personal feelings for the sheriff. These are unprincipled procedures that they have set forth. There's little doubt that the two incidents at the jail were just what these two commissioners needed to come after the sheriff. And it is obvious that Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Zoller have little interest in taking a serious look at updating the jail and seeing that the inmates receive daily visits from a medical professional. Your whole focus has been on what can we do to make the sheriff look bad. Also, it appears that Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Zoller are using staffers for cover who are unelected and yet letting them have direct input on executive sessions. This is a blatant surrender of the responsibilities that is elected to them. As it has been stated in the Declaration of Independence, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. Thank you.
Thank you. Back online. iPhone. I don't see identification.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Leslie Naramore. I live in Klickitat County.
Hi,
And
Leslie.
I just wanted to say thank you for the action that you took last week. I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is coming from as I'm listening to these comments because the jail isn't being closed and people aren't being sent to Norcor. At least that was my understanding from the meeting that I watched last week. And that I was very thankful to see that you all came to a unanimous decision. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I just wanted to also say that, you know, I know people want to paint this as a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's a humanitarian issue. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm just really glad that this is the direction that you're going. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Back in the room. No one online? Is there anyone else this morning? Quiet morning. No one there? Is there anyone else? No one wish to give comment?
Greg Wagner with Steve.
Good morning, Greg.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about May 7th when you had the franchise agreement hearing. You didn't follow the laws. You didn't notify the people. You did it all wrong. You can't make any decision on this carriage or franchise agreement until you hold another hearing after you follow all the laws. Your job is to follow the laws. You took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of Washington. That hearing you can't discuss anything here on until you have another hearing. And I've been watching this jail situation since your letter of intent on March 29th to close the jail. You did that with no findings of facts. You didn't do your research, two of you, Anderson and Ms. Zoller. You failed in your duties. You just want to close the jail. I've listened to everything that's gone on. Last Thursday's workshop, another disjointed, confusing bunch of babble about the jail. You had two people, Van Cleves and Miss Neal. They tried, but they didn't have enough facts. That was proven when they were asked questions about their options that they came up with. One of the options is to take the prisoners over to Norcor and have our tax dollars spent in Oregon to help support Wasco County, where Mr. Van Cleves lives. That's unacceptable. We don't need those inmates going over there. Van Cleves and Mr. Neal apparently never had the sheriff's department involved in any of the discussions to come up with any of these options. Obviously, they didn't know what they were doing, the two that come up with the 4 options. It's just more confusing mess that the county gets into. You needed legal advice, but yet Cannell wasn't there. Did you ask Cannell to be at the meeting? That's your responsibility. He doesn't have to come unless he's asked for advice, according to RCW 3627, the legal advisor to the legislative body. But you got to ask him to be there. He needed to be there. You failed to do that. This is a big legal issue. And all I hear Jake Anderson say, we make many decisions without the facts. And that's a true statement. He finally said something true. And that's shameful. Because just like the franchise agreement, none of you ever read the franchise agreement, or you would have found all the mistakes in it that I found and how you violated the law. This is conduct unbecoming of commissioners. You have to start acting like professionals and educate yourself before you start doing things. I believe you just want to take over the jail. You guys can't even hold a hearing properly. How are you going to be overseeing a Department of Corrections? This is incompetence at its best.
Thank you,
You
Mr.
all just aren't doing your job.
One
and you need to
last
start.
time in the room.
Sheriff Bob needs to be involved in this.
It's okay. That's okay. Online, Rita Pinto.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
For taking my comment. I wanted to just say I continue to be really concerned about how political this whole jail issue has become, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is human beings who are probably in one of the most vulnerable positions a human can be in, and the services that they need to be able to turn things around and not cause harm in our county anymore. And so with that in mind, I just want to thank you for your leadership and continued effort to be professional as you move forward through this. I see that, I appreciate it. And I also really appreciate that you're seeking independent counsel and consultation as you move forward on this issue. I think that's really necessary to try to move out of this being such a heated political issue. I also am curious if you can speak a bit to what is being done in the meantime. There's still humans in the jail, and I'm hearing in the community that services are on hold and not accessible to the folks that are there right now. And that's deeply concerning for me. So I'd like to hear what's in place to make sure that people do get healthcare and mental health services and access to supports as you all go through this process. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. One more time in the room. Online, Roger, good morning.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Office released a press release, and I'm curious if we can get responses to that press release from members of the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. No new participants in the room. We'll ask online again for Zoom. Are there more participants on Zoom this morning? So one more time, and then we'll move to commissioner comment. Oh,
I'm unmuted.
You've got Don Bryan and 2662.
Let's start with Don Bryan.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Why would anybody want to run for public office? I mean, we sit here and listen to you guys think you're doing the right thing. and which I believe you are, but yet everybody attacks you for doing what you think is right. But yet they've got all the answers, but we never see their name on the ballots. We have 2 openings now, Mr. Christopher and Commissioner Anderson, but the people that are doing the complaining and have got all the answers for the county, their names aren't on the ballot. So I just find that kind of interesting. But I guess, what do you call that, Monday morning quarterback or something? But anyway, thanks for the meeting on Thursday, and I think you're going in the right direction. Hopefully things will get better. Everybody can move forward, and the information that Mr. Van Cleve and Jen gave, I thought was very detailed for what they had. I mean, like they said, they can't go through every single minute possibility until you guys decide what plan you're going to take. And now maybe we can get some more information on plan 3 that you guys have decided to take as the option. Anyway, thanks for your service and thanks for your time. And I'd like to see some of these people that are pissing and moaning about the work that you guys are doing. I'd like to see their name on the ballot. That's what I'd like to see. Anyway, have a good day. Talk to you later.
Thank you. That was open. There was another. 2662. We have.
Hello, commissioners. This is Tracy from Lyle.
Hi, Tracy.
And last week I tried to talk about the burn ban, but I was cut off. My 3 minutes were up. So that's what I was going to talk about today. So I noticed that the burn ban has changed. In fact, it's changed pretty dramatically from previous years. And was that my question is, was that done in a public hearing? Was that approved in a public hearing? And why was it changed? You know, they just did a revamp of it a couple of years ago and put climate change and all the rest in it. And now it seems like, you know, it talks about you folks are the commissioners are the first authority. And then if they're not the first authority, they're the second authority. If the first authority doesn't do anything, it was very confusing. So could you explain what that means, you know, being the first authority or second authority to who, you know? And then it also is in there where Jeff King can do an emergency. Is that during the burn ban or is that not during the burn ban? And when would that emergency be called, during a red flag? Or, you know, those are my questions. And then who do you have that directs you on the burn ban? Is it a committee? Is it Jeff King? You know? And then the last question is why would the prescribed burns and training and stuff for the fire department, why would that be able to go on during a burn ban? Because if we are really in a extreme, as you hear all the time, extreme fire danger, then there shouldn't be any burning, not with the fire department, you know, not with anybody. If the fire department's on a prescribed burn, they're not going to be here if a burn starts here. And so and it's also a paid thing. They get paid to do the prescribed burns. So are they just putting the burn ban on so that they can go do their paid job and then there'll be less fires potentially since people aren't burning? I mean, it just seems like the fire department does what they want, you know, with the WUI. It wasn't done with the with parcels. You know, the map didn't even have parcels on it. So how could you put in the WUI? And now I hear on the radio that you can get $250 towards your, you know, taking care of your defensible space. Well, who's doing that? Is the fire department doing the defensible space too? You know, So those were my questions. And if you can answer that about the authority and the Jeff King or whoever it is that's the emergency declaration and why the fire department should be at the burn, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else online this morning? Good morning, Sherry. Oops,
Good morning, commissioners.
there you are.
I started this conversation several months back with questioning how our government is formed, and it's been pretty disturbing. I read a document from an attorney that stated in this document how when fire districts become an RFA, Regional Fire Authority, which as we know happened on the west side with KCFD3 and White Salmon, and they merged, and so, I guess through the vote of the people, which I question that. But anyway, here we are. And in this document from the attorney, it said, once you become an RFA, you can be a political subdivision and a municipal corporation with police powers, eminent domain powers, basically making them their own form of government. And I've asked, how did one entity get two legal entity powers? Again, let me state them. They are a political subdivision and a municipal corporation. How does that happen? How do they call themselves government if they're a municipal corporation? And then I asked, who are you guys? Several weeks. Who are you guys? Are you a political subdivision or are you a municipal corporation? And I eventually got from Anderson that you're a nonprofit corporation. And I'd like to hear that again today. Is that who Klickitat County is, a nonprofit corporation? Because if you are, you have to be registered with the Secretary of State. You'll have articles of incorporation and you'll have charters and bylaws. So also with this, I would like to publicly request, and this is a public records request on record, I would like to see what powers of Klickitat County, who you are. I would like to see your articles of incorporation, and I would like to see your charter and bylaws. I'm requesting those documents. I want to know who you are. Because I'm looking at this jail thing and I keep saying, oh, where's the rules? Where's our rules? All we have is like the Constitution. We have RCWs, WACs, whatever. You don't seem to obey them. But anyway, I do a job where we all have rules. I do gymnastics judging. We have one book and there's one set of rules. And why is there confusion on the jail when there should be one set of rules and we're all playing by the same rules, right, Mr. Anderson? We all play by the same rules, but apparently we don't know your rule book. We don't know who you are and what rules you're playing by, your municipal corporation or what. So hopefully when I get your charter and bylaws, I'll be able to figure out more of who you are. But with the jail, transporting across state lines, isn't that interstate commerce? And I'm afraid we might get into a little bit of human trafficking here. So this corporation might want to step lightly, and I'll be looking forward to those records. And if you can't provide them or Lisa can't provide them, please let me know publicly who I request them from, since our quote unquote county government doesn't have a public records request officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone in the room? No. Back to Zoom. Is there anyone else this morning? So our time is skipping by. I think we'll move to commissioner comments. Mr. Christopher?
So I'm gonna kind of go out of order a little bit just because the last one's fresh in my head. I'm since I saw staff diligently taking notes over here, I'm under the impression that she got your public records request, Sherry. And you will receive the bylaws and whatnot, but just because you receive the bylaws doesn't mean that you understand when we are working under those bylaws. There are times when we're acting as a public corporation, which is usually, once a year when we open the meeting, give the treasurer's report, close the meeting. And then everything else is not. So even though you get the bylaws for the public corporation, I think you still need to do a little research. When the public corporation is in business, they would have to open their meeting just like this, stating this is a meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation, as opposed to Board of Commissioners. So there's some civics there that, but we will send you the documents on the corporation. Tracy burn ban update. Who directs on the burn ban? That would be Mr. King, our local resident expert, because I am not a resident expert. Why can some organizations burn during the burn ban? That's a good question. I'm not the local expert, so I'm not going to try to answer an expert question. I would advise you to reach out to the expert, Mr. King, and get the answers to your questions. John asked, why would anyone run for public office? Boy, that's a good question right there. Especially this seat. This seat doesn't pay as much as the rest of the electeds in the county. I have my own opinion. I think you can, with the amount of money commissioners pay, you have three choices. You have trying to subsidize retirement income, trying to make change to actually help people is number two. And number three, trying to change laws, policies, or county directives to build wealth. And I believe all three of those have happened in this county in our lifetime. Mr. Nichols wants a response to the sheriff's press release. I do not have a copy of the sheriff's press release, sir. If you would like to email me a copy, I'll read it and try to get back to you on that, because I have no problem giving comment on that. I just haven't seen it. I went through Facebook real quick. I searched through my emails. I couldn't find it in there. Mr. Wagner, franchise agreement. Yeah, I think what you're going to find is there will be another public hearing for that franchise agreement that will get posted by the auditor before there's any official vote. Just to clear any possible legal issues up with that. But last I heard it was months away. I don't know why it's that far away. But yeah, I look forward to seeing it in front of me, and I have read the franchise agreement, sir. And we'll stick with that. Mr. Rizzi, I can say I have no doubt any option for the jail 1 through 4 will cost the county more money than we currently pay. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, regardless of what we choose, we'll end up landing well more than the 1.85 average $1 million. Candy asked if I found out better costs on closing and sending out or closing the jail and sending it out versus what we have. And the only documents I have is from the same thing I gave last Thursday. There has been no new numbers. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to leave the Norcor option on the tables, because I want numbers. Because I feel it will be well more by the time it's all said and done than keeping the jail intact. And since that was the argument, is that it will save budget money, at least by some members of the public. And some electeds not in this room. Yeah, I kind of want the proof to go, no, you're wrong. I don't know that I'll ever get those numbers. I have a feeling it's, the sheriff spends 1.8, 1.9 a year, and we're going to forecast him to be in the jail. And we're going to forecast him to be at 2.5. That way, when the Board of Commissioners takes it over and only comes in at 2.1, see, we saved you 400 grand. No, we spent an extra 200 grand. You didn't watch the shells as they were sliding. So no, I have no doubt that we will cost more. But I have no doubt that it will also be less than 2.5. If I have anything to say about it, which sometimes I have a vote that counts and other times it doesn't count. WJ landfill gas update. I do not have an update for you, sir. That is the chair of this board meeting with the chair of that board when their schedules align. I will again go on record encouraging our chair to do what it takes to deliver that money and negotiate with the PUD as hard as it needs to be negotiated to make sure that you have that money. And that's all I have. Thank you. And for everybody else, I did hear you. You maybe didn't ask a question, or you were a little political, which I don't have a problem with, but I don't want to pile on. So I'm going to refrain from responding to the other ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Smith, thank you for continuing to come to our meetings. Thank you for always keeping an open mind. And thank you for the kind words about last Thursday's meeting. We don't seem to hear that very often, and we really appreciate it when we do. So 2 thumbs up as you like to give in the back of the room. Mr. Morris, I think Commissioner Christopher said it very well. I believe there should be a meeting between our chair and the chair of the PUD to have that discussion. I don't know if that's occurred or not. Hopefully we'll get an update. Mr. Rizzi, the county is not broke. We've been very clear, both Commissioner Christopher and I, since we took office, that we are experiencing significant headwinds when it comes to the budget moving into the future years. And this was prior to losing the landfill contracts. We were still facing budget headwinds because inflation is much more than we bring in additional tax revenues. The 1% cap, when inflation is much higher than that, always will create headwinds. We use the landfill as the buffer against that for close to 20 years, but that has dried up. So we are not broke. The county does have reserves. We have multiple years in which we can run at a deficit if we had to and still survive. There are many other counties in the state that don't have reserves like we do, that haven't been as fiscally prudent as we have, that doesn't have the levers and options that we have available. So I just wanted to clarify that. Ms. Naramore, thank you for your kind words. I agree, this is not a political issue. This has never been a political issue from us. This is, as you said, this is a humanitarian issue. This is ensuring that the jail continues on, doing our due diligence, making sure that staff brings us what they brought us so that we can make informed decisions. Which leads me to which comment is it? The comment, somebody, it might have been Rizzi, I didn't bold it, about what our staff put forward. This goes also to the statements by Mr. Wagner. Our staff worked diligently for 2 months to come up with the document that was provided to everyone in public so that we could have a conversation. Staff worked very hard on that. And even after 2 months of hard work, you still don't have every answer. You don't have every bit of information you could ever want, because one question might take months of work in order to answer. So, Mr. Wagner, yes, when you are in a position of leadership, you are faced with making decisions when you don't have all of the facts, because that's something that you're required to do. You can have enough to make a decision and move forward with it. You can sometimes make mistakes when that happens, but that's part of being a leader and having to make the tough decisions, because otherwise we would never get anything done, because we would be under paralysis of trying to do another study. In many instances, studies that when we have to go out and hire consultants can cost $1 million. And sometimes you have to make decisions where you don't have $1 million to spend on that study. We see this all the time in government. And so I think it was Mr. Bryan who made the comment, why do you do this? Why would anybody want to do this? That's a really good question, as Commissioner Christopher stated. We do it because we care. I don't think anybody gets up here to take the abuse and the anger and the animosity because they like it. I think we do it because we care about our community. I think that goes for all elected positions, whether it's the treasurer, the sheriff, or your school board. And many of those positions that we elect in our communities that continue to get yelled at and screamed at in public are doing it for free. And yet there are neighbors, there are citizens, there are family members. And I think this gets back to, why would anybody want to be in office in this time of incivility that we have found? And that's a very good question, one that I had to ask myself quite often. And I'm sure my seatmates do as well.
That was a good comment, Sue.
Thank you.
Agree with that. Thank you.
Questions that I can answer though. Mr. Bryan, thank you for your kind words. It is my hope, and was our goal, that we'll bring in a consultant to do what it would be like a LEMAP, which is a full assessment of the jail. And hopefully that will be supported by the insurance pool, and hopefully the pool will be paying a portion of that so that it doesn't fall on taxpayer dollars. On top of that, my goal, my hope is that we bring in a contract manager for the transition of the jail, whether that remains with option 3 or moves to option 2, which sometime moves to option 1, whatever that takes. I think it needs to be someone who comes in who is a transition manager who has done this in other jails throughout Washington state. We are not in uncharted territory here. I will bring that up again. We are not doing anything illegal. We are not the first jail in the most recent years where the Board of County Commissioners assumes it. It's happened in Clark County. It's happened in Benton County. It's happened in Spokane County. We've got Garfield County who just shut their jail and is contracting out. Other jails I've found out are looking at doing the same. So this is not something where this is a political thing against the sheriff in any way. This is what's happening statewide. We are also seeing a trend of moving towards more regional correctional facilities, whether it's for juveniles or for jails, so that you can have economies of scope and scale so that you can provide the services that are necessary for the citizens who are incarcerated within the jails. Tracy, one thing I could add to what Commissioner Christopher said, our emergency management director, King, doesn't make decisions in a vacuum. He also contacts all the fire chiefs. He works with CASIFA, Klickitat County Fire Chiefs Association, maybe? Close, I was close. To make those decisions on when the burn bans move forward. And it is what those fire chiefs put forward as recommendations and the Board of County Commissioners agrees to. In terms of your $250 defensible space, I can only imagine that is something either through state DNR, where if you provide defensible space, they'll give you a grant to help pay for it, or could also be through the conservation districts. It has nothing to do, as far as I know, with our emergency management department. So we don't know anything about it. In terms of prescribed burns, that came up. Yes, our changes were done in a public hearing. Yes, it was done all in public. I would hope that as often as you're on, you would have been here for those discussions. But the prescribed burns was talked about because sometimes prescribed burns are based on conditions. And sometimes the prescribed burns, when you have all of your agencies together that are working together to do a prescribed burn, that will limit the amount of potential damage in the future on the ground, has to happen inside the burn ban, and it's usually on the outside end of the burn ban. Like the burn ban hasn't come off, but the conditions, we've got the wetting rain, we've got what we need, and we don't want to set the law so that they can't do what the on the ground conditions need to have happen for the safety of the community. And so that's why we included that in there. And we had a good amount of conversation in order to ensure that could happen. And to Sherry, I think I've answered the question on whether we're a municipal corporation or subdivision of state government enough. I will again direct you to RCW 3632 about what county commissioners do. And in terms of your public records request, staff, I'm sure will respond to that. Yeah. She will be sending you an email with the public records request form, and you will get the 5-day notification. I'm positive of it. And with that, go ahead.
Okay. I am thankful for my seatmates and their diligent notes and comments, and all of my notes from today have fairly well been covered. And I agree with all of my seatmates' comments. Again, I'm thankful to be chair, and so I get to go last. So a lot of times they do the comment work for me. I would like to say, Mr. Wagner, that the franchise agreement is ongoing. We're working on that. We're working on gathering information to meet again on that subject. And I think you and I have talked about that subject too. The publishing, I think that you and I can have a longer conversation, but we did find in the RCW that it was fairly antiquated. And once the county moved forward and created other departments and personnel, they were allowed to take charge of doing those publications. So we'll talk about how that happens and make sure that in the future it does get publicized. But I do not believe it is the obligation of the auditor to do that, or we don't need to add to her work either. We may need to talk to the state about updating something that's fairly old that had her name in it that is no longer necessary. And Rita, it was good to hear from you today, and thank you for your thoughtful explanation of what you're seeing out in the public and what you see with the work we're doing here at the county. Mr. Bryan, always good to hear from you. Thanks for your common sense and just keeping track of the county and the county commissioners. I appreciate you. Sherry, again, I would comment, you have a longer conversation to probably have with Secretary of State. And we are no different than any other county in the state on how we're structured and the obligations that we're under for all the many hats that we wear here at the county. Those are driven by state law, and they're accessible with the Secretary of State. And I'd just like to say thank you to our staff that did their due diligence and dedicated themselves to a really hard subject. This was not something that's easy to work on, and they've been drawn into it to do the work to help the county commissioners make decisions, and they did a great job, which has led us to the next phase, and that's to reach out for more professional help to finish the document and make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's before we make decisions. But I appreciate everyone. So moving on with our day. Thank you very much. So consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass the consent agenda with the 8 items.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I do find it interesting that there's twice as many people on Zoom as there was on Thursday, and we don't really have anything on our agenda of note.
Is it because we opened it or we passed 100? Or not? No. Oh,
There's close to 70, and there was like 35 or 40 on Thursday, so that was weird.
well, that's good. People are paying attention.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $736,262.38 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $0 for the date ending June 3rd, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We have a department update, and if I may come forward, Scott, you're good. I just want to take 1 second. Mr. King might be waiting on me. I'm not sure. We had a quick discussion last week about the update on the permit for the Elk Meadows fire. And it was ascertained that it's actually under the purview of DNR. And so that legally releases us from obligation with that. And Mr. King wanted to make sure he was not here last week if the commissioners we're in favor of releasing that to have him reach out to DNR and Elk Meadows to get that going for them. Is that correct? I think we said we were good with it as long as it was covered by DNR. It was such a short discussion last.
I don't know that
You
we
don't remember
actually
it?
had a discussion.
Okay.
But,
Do you
I mean, at least in this room, I have no issues with it. The way I was, informed of how the burn ban reads and the way I went back and looked at the burn ban, I myself find it under the, directive of DNR and not my baby.
Mr. Anderson, do you have any
I did have some questions with regards to that. So,
comment?
huh?
Do you need to put it on the agenda?
No, I was just gonna say, the way that it read is that if you are outside of fire district bounds and then you, like, if you're not within a fire district, then you are under the direction of DNR. And so I just want to make sure that when we set the fire ban, and we include all those codes, that area, I'm totally fine with the way that this has worked out. I think we need clarification for if this comes up again in any other, because somebody who's not currently within a fire district boundary could then go to the state DNR and ask for the same, in essence, waiver that Elk Meadows had. And I just want to make sure that that's, I doubt DNR would ever issue one again because they don't want to take on the liability.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to be, that's an option out there with that interpretation. But I think it's a fine result.
Well, and the kicker for me is I'm not giving you permission.
Okay.
I'm not giving you a waiver. So I'm not assuming any liability is the county's fault if you start the woods on fire. Versus the old waiver way. So if DNR wants that responsibility.
Yep.
And they want to be named as 1% in a lawsuit, that's fine, but I'm not 1% because I have rules. And then you're kind of going that route. So yeah, no, I see it reducing our risk of liability. So.
Okay. Good.
Do what?
You want me to follow up with those matters?
Please.
Yes. They've been waiting, so thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Scott, for giving up your time. I appreciate it. So we have an update from our planning director. Thank you very much.
It was planning just a
Yeah, you got 8 minutes. Security's in the back waiting to
Thank you.
escort you out.
Well, good morning. I missed the notice that we're supposed to have blue tones on, so I apologize for my orange.
I thought it was picnic tones.
You look great up there.
I brought picnic tablecloth.
I'll start off just, I know I'm using some of my time, but being new to town, sometimes I like to comment on things I notice. And one thing that I have noticed since being here is a certain group of people in the community. And it's, I'd say women, 65, 70, 80 years old. They're the ones, there's probably been 5 times in the grocery store that I walk up with a couple things in my hand and someone says, please go ahead of me, and insists. It's always those women. I've heard several people say, God bless you in various businesses. Always those women, they're the ones who are praying for us. And I've seen in this room, especially recently, many of them come forth on issues. They come with dignity, they come with respect, they say what they want and say thank you. And I just feel like that's a group of people who teaches us how to act. And I just want to appreciate that group of people. Maybe it's because I come from Redmond where there's 36,000 people and that group gets overlooked. But here, they just really stick out as leaders in the community in their own way. I'll go through my agenda. Board of Adjustments last night denied an RV park conditional use. It's interesting because you don't see a lot of conditional uses be denied. This is one that was unique somewhat in that it didn't fall into one of the specific conditional use listed. It was in the catch-all category where the Board of Adjustments had to determine that it was both similar to uses that are allowed in the zone and also less detrimental to the neighborhood. So that was
which RV park was this?
Smith RV Park, north of in Husum.
Was the vote unanimous?
It was 3-1 with 1 abstention. And that's okay to mention you because you're not the appeal body for that.
Nope.
But anytime we get, it's interesting because that helps us. We get a lot of those in the catch-all categories when they come to conditional uses, and sometimes it's assumed that those are just going to go through. But that catch-all category does have a little bit extra burden on the applicant. And the information like this helps us for future ones, because last thing we want people to do is spend money when they're not going to get what they're looking for. The next, it's very busy Board of Adjustments coming up July 1st. A wine tasting room on Old Highway 8 in Lisle, and then August 5th. There's 3 single-family dwellings proposed as long-term rentals in the tourist commercial zone. This is another one of those catch-all categories that we don't know where it's going to go. So those are ones that concern me. You always want to give the warning to people that they're approaching some of these conditional uses at their own risk. Planning Commission, June 8th is continued deliberation on the Wilson Monroe rezone to Snowden. And then time dependent after that is done, we'll continue on the critical areas ordinance. As you see, the next chapters are geological hazard areas, critical aquifer recharge areas, and frequently flooded areas to finish out the work. They're very keen on understanding that this is work that needs to be done. And so they voluntarily agreed to a meeting the very next week to continue that work. So I appreciate that from the Planning Commission. Comprehensive plan is solar ordinance. I'm going to be spending some time the next week looking at feasibility. I'm going to be talking to some other departments, finance, public works, others who would be heavily involved as we would look to go forward. I also like to get some feedback from you, probably offline, just conversations. Will take quite a bit of staff capacity, cross-department work, need to deal with consultant management and availability, and just want to make sure it's a priority for you as the board, because I know we have a lot of priorities and there's plenty of work to be done. So that's something I'd like to check in with you as the week goes by. Speaking of consultants, Harper Hoff Peterson Regalis is the group that we selected with our RFP. The PA has approved the contract. And so I would like to ask you if you'd be willing to consider on your consent agenda next week. And of course, if you have issues with it, we could pull it right off the consent agenda and discuss it in separate from that. But would that be okay if we put that on your consent agenda for next week?
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Terrific. And I'm going to have a phone call with them this week to update them on a few departmental issues, and then not a contract yet. They've been very generous with their time prior to contract. And then I think the following week, if we get the contract signed, we'll have a lengthier talk about how we would best use them and how they can help us meet our needs. I just want to mention, I'll go down to the code enforcement. Just want to mention festivals. I'm not going to highlight these because these are code enforcement. I don't like to bring things out publicly. That's for George to do. No, he's also very careful with that. If you hear about any festivals, please let me know. We are trying to work with some festivals that have gone on for years unchecked, with the goal of trying to get them into compliance. Sometimes right away, sometimes in the future. As you know, we work with people, try to work with people. We do it on a complaint basis, and we have multiple departments involved in code enforcement. So it makes it a little trickier. If you want more details, I'd be glad to talk to you offline. Again, that's not to hide anything. It's simply to protect reputation and people who we're trying to work with proactively with code enforcement. You see some of our other current priorities. These are things that we're working on right now. I'd be glad to answer questions here or later on of any of those. I think that's all I have. Other than you got the sheet showing the department application summary that we received for this updated for this month, and then pre-sub. I'm trying to still, in my mind, getting time to try to figure out how to make this more interesting for you. I know that Debbie is working on going backwards so we can give you some historical. It's going to be a little while before we get all that done. I'm hoping for a budget, we can maybe have some good information to put in the budget document. And then if you need more information, if you have ideas how to make this more interesting or more useful to you, I'd be glad to take that and work on it.
That's great. Thank you. You stay very busy.
No, I'm good. Are you going to be around this afternoon? Too busy? Looks like another short day here, so we might be done by 2, and
Perfect.
I can run up and chat.
Okay.
Or we can run
Yeah.
and go get a Danish somewhere or something.
Either one sounds good. I've got a meeting at 2:30 to 3:30, and I'm trying to coordinate with a couple commissioners. So
Do you have one at 2:30 and another one at 3:30?
maybe you could, no, it's at 2:30 to 3:30.
Okay.
What time did I put in for you?
I think you said right,
1:45.
1:45 to 15 minutes. We'll cover it.
Yeah. I can do it in 15 minutes. When you start. And if Mrs.
Wow, you can give me this little tiny window.
What was that, 2 to 2:30?
All right, so you're saying 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock works for me.
Okay.
One thing we might want to look at, I'm looking at the Muni code right now, and I think it needs to be updated. It still shows the planned district, and I thought that got removed years ago. From
Plan
our
district?
Yeah, it shows chapter 19.34, planned district PD.
Oh, right. I knew that was,
I'm pretty sure
Eliminated.
that was eliminated, but it's still coming up. So we need to, I know this was an issue on somebody had pulled up Muni code and used it in an application some years ago. And Muni code said one thing, what we'd adopted in our ordinance, it said another thing. And it wasn't, and it turned into a mess. So we want to make sure Muni code is showing what it does. And then I noticed, like, I tried before, but the resource lands district is not showing up on Muni code.
good.
No. Just something to have staff look at.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I've heard other issues, that most of them were very recent changes though, that just hadn't made it through yet.
These are.
But these,
older
no,
ones.
definitely. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
Mhm.
Perfect timing.
All right, thank you.
Jeff only can get you for 1 minute. So our Public Works Director, Jeff Hunter, and Seth Scarola, Public Works update.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
Mhm.
Wow.
Looks good, doesn't it?
Sure you'll be happy when we get done with air conditioners.
Yes,
And then we get a break for 5 years and then probably start all over again.
that's probably correct.
Or does it just start all over again and you don't get a break at all?
Well,
But
air
what's always
conditioners should-
something.
Something will break.
Air conditioners should last longer than 5 years. so.
They do.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry, I was-
okay, no,
I was
no, I'm
reading your
always
list.
waiting for you. Okay, I heard kind of in the background that a consent agenda was passed, so we'll move past that. We have some pay estimates. Pay estimate to A&E, first and final, for $148,190. We keep the retainage until we get, releases from the other 3 state departments, and that's for the Pioneer Center HVAC contract. I think we have 1 or 2 more of those left. First and final for all seasons for $69,942,000. This is for the courthouse HVAC replacement project. We actually have another one of those for the courthouse going. Hale Construction.
I have a question before you move on.
Uh-huh.
The way you have it worded in here with the pay estimate and the amount and the retainage and the tax and the portion we keep, this is the way it always used to read on here. And now it just reads this on here. Are we good to go just reading this?
You're good to go reading as long as you have the total amount.
We don't
Because
have to really do all the little in the sales portion and then we get to keep this.
You're
little-
fine. We give you that in case people want to know. But retainage is considered an expense.
Right.
So once that's what we owe them, the retainage,
Well, I think this is far more information, but for 99% of the people, it just confuses the hell out of them.
Yes.
So hence the reason it's this way, but weird people like me would like to see it that way.
Yes, and you enjoy the math. I'm
Yep,
sure.
I want to know all the numbers.
Yes. Okay, when we have a pay estimate number 3 to Hale Construction and the amount of $113,869.03. And that is for the Fairground Sale Barn project. And we have a hearing at 1 o'clock to amend the 6-year, and we will discuss that at 1 o'clock.
Question.
Yes.
My blue card says pass number 3 is 122,409.
Okay.
So can you give me
Let's
the
see,
correct
let's see
number
what it
before I do
says.
it?
Yes,
please?
we can. We will see what it says. Big bad.
Trying to throw a wrench in your day.
Oh, it's okay. Probably be the last one. There it is, of course. It is, I see 122,
Okay, that's what I have on my blue card.
which is 113 minus the retainage. If I'd have read the whole thing, it's the whole jibber jabber again. Yes, it's 122 total.
Yeah.
It's actually 113 minus the retainage plus the sales tax for 116.
Just want to make sure we're good to go.
So if it's 113 minus the 5 plus the 8, I get 116. I don't get 1.
It is 116. 122 is the total amount of the expense though, because the retainage is expense, but that technically that's not what the check is cut for. The check is cut for the 116, just as you said, sir.
Right, it's a matter of, we're reading the blue card, which is the total amount. You're explaining the amount it actually is because we get to keep the portion.
Yeah, and we may not do that anymore unless we can have it in our back pocket. And if you want that information, we can give you that information.
I just wanted to make sure we were good to go.
No, no, we're.
All right, on the construction end of things, the 2023 crushing contract has been completed. See, Bickleton area paving, contractors working on placing some shoulder rock and working on approaches. They do have a wearing course yet to place on East and West Market Streets. Sunday Old 8, they're diligently working on the excavations and embankment construction. Next week, I'll bring you guys some pictures so you see what it looks like. 2024 annual striping, the phase 1 has been completed. I think I said that last week. Phase 2 will commence once our BSTs have been done this summer. On the design, still working on Sunnyside Road overlay with our stormwater evaluation and utility discussions. Bridge repair bundles, 2 of the consultant agreements for that design work were on the consent agenda. The third one should be here next week, I'm hoping. And the design work will start. And we're doing other design work on the safety projects and the upcoming additional federal paving project. That's what I got.
Okay, maintenance, East End, we're grading on in the Bickleton area, and we're removing trees of heaven in around Goldendale, Wishram, down by the river. I don't think there's actually any trees of heaven in Goldendale, but down by the river there are. Okay, on the west side, we're patching in Lyle and Dallasport, and we have Cove Road work, and that's what this is, these pictures. And for those people that are not familiar with Cove Road is the boat ramp in Lyle. They've been asking for quite a while. We looked at it as, you know, we would have to put it on as a project list. Then we realized it's a road. So we did remove a portion of the concrete ramp. We got permission from Fish and Wildlife to not anything in the water though. That would become, once we get into the water and we start looking at ramps and stuff like that, then it becomes a project that actually falls under facilities and parks versus roads, because road can do the road portion of it, the in and out, but the actual ramp is a different scenario. But it has been widened. We took out 300 yards, over 300 yards of sand. Put it in our Lyle sand pit, just up the hill, and we'll actually use some of it because it comes in handy for us. We will choke out our chip seal when it starts to bleed in the summertime. So no, community is very pleased.
Looks nice.
Yes, we're going to put some rock on it in spots too to keep it together. So yes, it was overdue. We found a way to make it happen. So
Thank you very much.
Made it happen. Okay, on the facility side, sale barn, one of the biggest pours I've seen is happening as we speak. It is right around 340 yards, I believe. Yeah, it's a big pour. That's over 30 trucks.
Wow.
I'm surprised they can find that money locally. I mean, imagine they're going back and refilling and coming back.
Yes.
And trying to do it before the first part of it. Yeah.
Yes, it's quite an undertaking to pour the whole slab in one. That's quite, with a broom finish, it is quite a project.
That is huge.
It is
Yeah.
huge.
Hopefully they make plenty of relief cuts.
I'm sure they will. Superior Court remodel. A couple small changes are being made. We've been ongoing. If you haven't seen it, it's set up with plywood, and that's how it's functioning now until they actually come back. The court gets closed again after July 5th courtroom, and then we will actually put the finished lumber on it. This way they can see how it works and they make minor tweaks, and then we can adjust before we actually put on the final, all the sheeting. Events, circuses coming to town like we talked, and we're also having the demo derby event coming up July 4th. We've had our first meeting with them. Fuel Island, we're hoping to get the final pans shortly, so we can look at getting that out to bid. Election security, we're moving through. West District Court project is almost complete. Just some trim needs to be installed this weekend. That project's done on the weekend, of course, because you can't shut their window down during the week. Grandstands ADA, we pulled our carpenter off. We finally got our second carpenter back. So we pulled them off to work to try to get the West District Court one done, but we will have the grandstands improvements completed by the 4th, the ADA improvements. West District Court is grant funded. That's why we're pushing on that. It has to be complete by the end of June. Some other follow-up issues, just kind of let you know, we met with Avangrid to talk about their Juniper Canyon Repower Road Haul. We started moving forward on that. We're working out the bugs on that. Our GPS unit has gone down. Which ER&R, that's what it stands for, equipment, rental, and replacement. So there is funds in that account to pay for that, because it's charged out when road uses it or the surveyors use it, there's a rental fee paid into an account that's made to replace that equipment. So with that said, a new GPS unit is $36,000. Not asking any money from the board, because there's money, that's what that money is in that account for. I just need the authority to go ahead and purchase that. We buy it off the state bid.
Thank you.
Okay. Jail vents. I would like to talk about that real quick. We looked at things, and it's going to cost right around $30,000 to order the jail vents and get them put in. Now, I'm going to state of the word. This is for Commissioner Christopher, not going to ask for more money. We have there is a project on the non-capital list to improve the jail lobby. That can be pushed off for a different time, and my recommendation is we amend that non-capital list and we do the jail vents with that money. It's about 20,000, and we also have another project that we had on that somebody wanted. They've changed their mind. They like it the way it is, and so that project will not come to fruition. So we would use those dollars also to cover the $30,000 to do the jail event covers. If the board is okay with that, we could order them, but I would bring forth the non-capital list for amendment. But again, there is budget neutral, so it's not a budget adjustment
Right. Yes on ordering. And the rest of my comments will be offline
Okay.
since we have pending litigation, so.
That's where I'm at as well.
Thank you for always watching budgets.
Okay. And that's all we have.
Are you, have those, the new vents, been approved by anybody important, or is it just something we've looked at and have said, hey, that looks pretty?
No.
I'm sure we've right. I'm just wanna for
They're
public.
recommended by Department of Corrections.
There we go. Perfect.
And we also have had them looked at, I mean, we put some effort into this a while ago too. Because we looked at making them ourselves, which we could have done, but I don't really have anybody available to do that. And I mean, this is what you order. This is what our mechanical said. This is what they put in. This is the latest and greatest.
Yeah. Yeah. Just.
Because we had to check for airflow too. So we had our mechanical engineer make sure that we were not reducing the airflow.
I was gonna say,
in
that's
set.
the other one. It might pay to put one of them in there, check for airflow, check for noise, check for, yeah, that was a very expensive. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you very much. Seth, you were so noisy today.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just took
Hey,
the
Seth,
whole
you got an
time.
email in your inbox that I typed up. I told you last week I have a project for you and I forgot to give it to you, so I typed it up today.
Okay, great.
No hurry, end of week, you know.
All right.
Should be fairly easy.
Great, I think there's Mr. Renard. I think we have airport update with Mr. Renard, the airport manager.
I didn't even see him come in. He snuck in.
Traffic, Klickitat County, you know.
Hey, Jeff, other Jeff, sorry. You're gonna make a lot of people happy when they come to try to launch a boat in there.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
well done.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Which part would you like updated first, the land lease or the budget?
Your baby.
We've got a land lease that, we have, I'm assuming you guys have the packet with the details on that. The background is KDLS Aircraft Storage is a Washington LLC with Josh Coombs and Rob Gilchrist. They are members of the LLC and both pilots with a presence already at our airport. They're requesting to build a 60 by 120 foot aircraft hangar on one of the lots adjacent to our new project, the taxi lanes that were just finished. So it'll be the first construction and a land lease associated. They will each occupy a half of the hangar. It'll have a bifurcation wall in the middle, and they project they'll be storing private aircraft and doing some commercial business from this. So it will be a kind of a moving target at this point as to what actually transpires out of there. We have so much activity looking for hangar space that I think the original idea of just being airplane storage starts morphing as people looking for commercial space. People start looking at, well, maybe this is a better business model. But in front of you is a land lease that will, for the 7,200 square foot land lease at the 20 cent per square foot aviation lot land lease rate, will increase our budget by $1,440 a year for that space. And I am just wanted to make sure you guys were updated. And I believe this is in front of you for approval of the land lease. Apologize, I'm still learning the presentation of some of this for you guys. So staff's recommendation on that is to, apologize, it says city manager on there, to have the Board of County Commissioners enter into the lease agreement with KDLS Aircraft Storage as presented, contingent upon approval from City of Dallas, which the City of Dallas has already approved.
Okay.
What was the total cost of the taxiway project South Apron that this is now allowing for?
3.4 million was the original project.
And how much in revenue are you expecting off of this lease per year?
Be 1,440 a year for the land lease. That's per our established land lease rates of 20 cents per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
So is there no, the 7,200 square foot is just the building size?
Correct.
Don't we usually, when we do land leases, include areas outside of the building footprint? Wherever that hits on the taxi lane, it seems like it's
Sorry.
not very much money for the land lease on a 60 by 120.
Well, no, it's not. Which has kind of been my point forever,
But yet we're higher than any other of the airports short of getting up into King County. Agreed.
Well, there's
If-
20 cents a month.
No.
I'm pretty sure up in King County. It'd be like 1440 a month.
I don't believe so,
Sure
but I
it's
would
by
have to,
month.
I would have to confirm that. I did, when I did the comparison and when we established those land lease rates a couple of years ago,
I remember.
I took all of the surrounding areas anywhere from Bend to Ellensburg. Ellensburg is presently at 16 cents a square foot. And what we decided in that process previously was that any dedicated space to the development would be paid for. So they are going to be responsible to pave the 40 feet of ramp in front of their building, but it's not dedicated to them. It's just a requirement of the project. Because there's not enough room adjacent to their building to actually park their aircraft out front and have tie down in front. Otherwise, if it was.
who puts water and sewer to their building?
They will. We have a project that was proposed previous this year to put the water line in and the PUD in, but we haven't been able to come to a negotiation with Dallasport Water District to get that distribution line that I wanted to put in done. And
well, that kind of brings up my point. At $1,400 a year, God, I would certainly hope we don't have to pay anything to do anything to fix anything. And then I guess the same deal at $1,400 a year. I would hope that it's businesses creating jobs and not people parking private planes. But it sounds like this one's kind of both. So yeah, I don't know. I have my own ideas about it, but I'm outvoted. We voted yes on that already.
Yeah, I just thought just remembering back, I thought that the lease included the total amount of space that you were going to use. So if they were paving that 40-foot apron out in front, that was counted in it. And then parking for any vehicles, because you're gonna have to park some vehicles, if it's a commercial business, that was included too.
Well, that would make sense to me too. You should have a footprint around your building that we can't put another building. So if you've got a 30-foot buffer before the next space, you would think that 30-foot buffer would be included in there too, but.
And we are accommodating that. There's 10-foot setback. They will not have any, one of the things we were working with planning on is that and building permits here locally, is that they will not have they don't have an approach permit. So they're not accessing through Jim Riley Loop and out of the business park. They will be aviation only. And if their parking will be inside of their hangar. There will be no parking at the hangar. We did determine that and agreed. I may have to make an amendment or an adjustment to that for the setback, but we're doing minimum setbacks between the buildings and requiring a firewall because we have limited space and I want to maximize every square foot we have on the airport. That's the goal. One of the previous buildings that Gary England built, that was one of the requirements way back then, is there's literally 10 feet between the buildings. And I don't believe he was charged for the footprint or that additional 5 feet on the sides. But other than that, the ramp will not be dedicated to them. It's just a requirement of the project that they will be responsible.
Right, to me, it's just, I guess I'd say somebody put in a water line that these people are eventually gonna hook to. That somebody is probably taxpayers. And at $1,400 a month, the taxpayer will never, $1,400 a year, the taxpayer will never get their money back for putting the water line in to begin with. So it's that whole subsidizing thing that I just have a problem with. But yeah, I'm not here to stand in the way of progress.
And I think we did talk about this some time ago about those rates, and we did reach out to other airports.
We did.
Just to qualify that. I remember that conversation a year or so ago. Because we had those questions then. Is this one of the ones that they build out and they build it and then eventually over 40 years, it becomes the property of the
Airport. Yep.
correct? So
Any-
that's why,
The lease rate is so low.
correct.
Correct. And
So you're-
that is one of the components of the FAA is that everything is subsidized.
So you're,
It's not a direct tax dollar from the county, from the city, from any of that. It is federally subsidized to keep general aviation alive. We do have a committee with the airport commission right now or the airport board, looking at SDCs, because that is one of the things that I felt was very important, is if we put this water line in and we spend X number of dollars, that everybody involved needs to be a participant in that dollar amount. I believe the airport has ultimately it's ours, our infrastructure, unless it's handed off to, like in the water line case, it would be handed off to Dallasport Water District. Developers will either presently, if in this example, they would use Dallasport Water District's system and have to hook into Jim Riley Loop Road. That was already paid for. That's a Dallasport Water District infrastructure on a county road. They will have to pay their SDCs and go through all of that process with them. The tenant is working with Klickitat County PUD for the power. We are trying to work some collaboration between in each of these projects, so we're only opening ditches once. I have some budgeted funds set aside for doing these projects, and then we would create that SDC, and we hope to have a comprehensive report back for what those rates would look like next month, or this month, I guess it's June now, with our airport board meeting. And then we would be able to say, okay, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 kind of thing, or whatever that percentage is. I don't know what it is yet. We're working on that because agreed, I don't necessarily think the developer should bear all the costs, but where it ultimately ends up is airport infrastructure. And it's nobody ever gets to own anything except for the vertical. And the airport always has first right of refusal. If they choose to sell, we have first option to buy it. Then it becomes revenue generation for the airport. And at 40 years, it does revert back to us.
40 or 30?
40. Yep. The FAA doesn't, they figure right now their blessing comes at a 20-year lease with the option of 2 10-year extensions. You see airports out there, and this has been a topic of conversation because I have folks pushing me to allow a 50-year lease. The FAA deems a 50-year lease a disposal of property, and they don't think that is prudent, and they highly recommend not doing that. So we've held fast at the 40 years. The one thing that I guess my personal reference to some of this is that aviation is a very selfish motivation. At the point I don't fly anymore, there's better places to put my money than have a hangar, because they don't make a bunch of money as renting a storage unit or something to that effect, or having another business model. So it's the people that do build and put their toy in there. It's a window. It's a season of your life that you fly, and then you don't, and then you sell it and the airport owns it, and it becomes a project that was done. We set all the design standards around it, so it does meet the criteria of the airport.
And I did look up, Ellensburg, ground lease is almost 16 cents?
16 cents.
16 cents, so it's cheaper than ours. And that is
Dramatically. My wife and I own a business that is actually on airport property up there, and that's what spurred some of my original looking at this, was to understand how is it 16 cents a square foot? Why is it Dallas? Previous to us changing to the 20 and 30 cents square foot, we were at $450 an acre, which took us down dramatically on that. When the previous construction that Hood Aero did with the 3 big buildings was at $450 an acre for their term.
And that included the area out front, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
They paid for their apron because
They
that
paid
is dedicated and they put in tie downs specific to them that they can do as they wish with.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
My last question.
Okay.
Good.
I guess is there,
Nope. I don't have anything else. Hopefully the half that's looking into the aviation maintenance / work / whatever will bring some tax revenue and some jobs, but,
well, and I believe all the vertical brings tax revenue to the county. Is that
Yes.
not accurate?
Property tax.
Mhm.
Property tax on the vertical construction, and then their portion of the ground is called out as well in the lease. There's a percentage of that. It's written into our design standards, and I don't know how that component works yet. Those are things that I felt like have been deferred maintenance type issues in airport management in years past. But it is called out in our design standards and lease agreements.
Well, I'm encouraged for the future of the airport. And I'm encouraged that so many people are interested so quickly. Mhm.
We've gotten a fair amount of response.
I think it's going to be sold before you get there.
I hope so, but I mean, the
Mhm.
business park has been vacant since it was done, so I mean, I'm a little apprehensive on some of that. We haven't had a whole bunch of building going up there, so I'm anxious that maybe we have some new energy and we get some new business and
I think
commercial
we're
activity.
heading for new ideas and new economy after the COVID things, and some things are getting busier and changing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I will say I would appreciate the direction you see it going. I appreciate you getting into and diving into some of this old contracty stuff and updating it while to me, 1400 is like, it's still better than it was. And it wasn't just, oh, we've been doing it this way for 20 years. We're going to continue to do it this way. So I do want to make sure, while I have some philosophical differences with Philip, the word.
Yes.
I have no ill will, and I think you've been doing great out there. So just
And
wanted
I
to
don't
pass that
disagree
on.
with you because I do feel like it's horribly, it feels horribly low in one regard, but if that was the case, both Ellensburg and the Dalles would be built out. Why is it not overwhelmed with prospects? I guess that's my.
Right. Well, and that's me and the subsidies. I understand the federal government wants to subsidize aviation and, that's all our tax dollars and whatever. But to me, it's how much county dollars am I putting into subsidizing that airport? And that number has gone up substantially since the day I took office to what it is today. So
That's a good segue into our budget, because I guess you would have to explain to me where that's at.
I think it's across the river.
In 2002, when the joint operating agreement was entered into between Klickitat County and the city of the Dalles, the agreement was $65,000 a year from each of the sponsors. So I take $130,000 into the budget from each sponsor, combined from the sponsors. That number has not changed since 2002. There's never been an additional dollar. The only money that has changed in that is match money to local grants. And with the almost 6 million that I was able to leverage this last year in grant money, we were at about 4% match money instead of 10%.
Right. We are paying administrative fees to the city of the Dalles for managing the money, essentially, you might as well say, and their lights and their overhead and their lawyer and so that's where our numbers are.
Gotcha.
But in opposition to that, I can say, if we took on that would cost us here. in
Agreed.
our
It
budget.
would go back the other direction.
It-
I mean,
it would just-
I
yeah.
know there's a
one way or another, you're
methodology
going to
there.
pay for the administration, whether we handle it or they handle it. And they've been well equipped and doing a good job. So the choice was leave it with them, or we would be hiring staff and paying staff and having lights and
My ultimate goal is that you build enough of these warehouses that they pay the 85,000 or whatever 90,000 we actually pay, so that the senior in a fixed income in a trailer park isn't paying for it. But that's my ideal goal.
I think you need to get into your budget because I think you've done really well.
Thank you. I can read all the way through it, or we can touch on some highlights. Again, like I said, since 2002, the airport's been involved in the partnership between the city of Dallas and Klickitat County. Some of the things that we've accomplished over the last couple of years. One of the big things that's happening right now is in this partnership, Richard Foster and your team up here have worked really hard to get this college process and this grant funding in place for building this AMP school, which will generate a bunch of jobs and a bunch of future employment for our youth in this region, which I'm excited about and really hopeful that we get that all of these shortfalls, just because of the amount of time it's taken to get there, actually get accomplished very soon. We have effectively finished the south apron and the taxiways where the building's being built. We have some secondary painting and a few more tie downs and things to add to that, but I received the third pay request last night to start closing that grant out. We have the used fuel tank on site now, which is one of our Oregon grants, and we'll have an above ground fuel system 90 days-ish, as long as all the components are still available.
Did that come with the pumps and everything that it needed, or did you have to buy a bunch of new stuff for that?
I will have to buy, we have a it's a $90,000 skid, which has the current filtration and brings everything up into compliance. It was a working system when we bought it, but being taken out of system, they won't recertify it. It has the old filtration. So the grant has all the funding in it, and we've already dedicated the funds through our match money. We have the $250,000 grant with our match. We have adequate funds to purchase the tank, put the skid on. Again, stacking a couple of those grants, we had, I have an emergency generator being installed at the same time that will pay for all of the electrical to get to the fuel apron and the runway lights and make everything operational within.
Is it gonna be more like the one out here in Goldendale or more like the debacle in Hood River?
Which part of the debacle?
In terms of the fuel tank system, like the one that they installed out here, the filtration systems, it's simple, it works, and then when you look at what they built in Hood River, it's down. I think it's been down for the whole time almost that it's been open.
Yes. From a visual standpoint, it's going to look like what's in Hood River. The lack of planning on the front end, and they had a 2-year gap between the time they put the infrastructure in the ground and didn't have 3-phase power associated with where the fuel tank needed to be. So there's a lot of things that transpired at that one. It'll be the exact same system that's at Goldendale here, okay, but in a much larger version. It's 12,000 gallon. Got it. Above ground.
All right.
Just
thank you.
Lots of accomplishments. Again, back to the tank. Let's see. Major issues to be resolved in the next 5 years. Mr. Christopher, that's my number one thing on there is financial sustainability of the airport operations. That is my goal. I told you guys that a couple of years ago. I started this thing in 2021. And
as I said, I see you moving that way. So
we're so close, and we have the Connect Oregon grant, which is a $1.8 million grant ask, which we came to you folks about the match money and the loan and grant option that we did to get the match money on that. If we get that, if we're successful in October in being awarded that grant and we get the vertical construction done, that will take us literally within a stone's throw of being financially sustaining at the airport. And that's been my push. It'll take a couple more buildings, but I've got other plans. I'm just trying not to pile anything up more into this budget or into this round of thinking. We've got a lot of stuff to close up and finish right now, but we will be very, very close. When I started looking at the actual budget, when I started in this business in 21, my budget was a $1.3 million budget. And this year I have a $13.6 million budget. We have 11 million in revenue going from, that's basically all grants, back to that 130, 180,000 that you were referring to. Everything else driven through this budget is grant revenue. My cost for the airport in that dramatic change only went up. My expenses have only gone up $82,000 through that process. To change the budget by about 12 million. That felt like a pretty good move in itself. It's really not, if you look back through the last 3 years, there's not a bunch of items that have triggered have triggered changes in the budget. Everything is pretty well offset. There's a couple of, we have a landscape company down there helping with the grounds maintenance now. That's an expense that we hadn't previously been spending, but it's keeping the airport looking like it should. And we have continue to work on a bunch of old equipment that we need to continue to build up. Some of those things are my line items that continue to increase. Water and sewer, the water aspect of that continues to rise, and we look forward to figuring out how we get beyond some of that and stabilizing some of those costs. Other than that, I mean, I apologize. It's not necessarily not going to read through it line by line, but if there's items that I can answer questions on,
Did we sell the dirt yet?
we did not. The process. I work with your treasury department, treasurer's office. Yes. To get it out for sale, and the process was new to me. I think we got a bid back on it. It came in substantially low, almost objectionably low. We're not going to sell it for that. We had put a $10 minimum on it, like the handshake deal was that I had previously made, not realizing that I had to put it through surplus. I do have a meeting with Greg scheduled to understand, now that we've surplused it, can I just go out and sell it to them at that agreed upon amount? Not the bid amount, but the $10 a square yard or $10 a yard that we had talked about, and he didn't think that was the case.
What'd the bid come in at?
I don't even know that it's been announced, but less than 2. So.
Okay.
So no, that's, I would love to figure out how to have that asset moved to the county, moved to the airport so that it could be sold. We have other people that are interested. And I think we can establish off of the 3 bids that where I went out and got the value of the dirt. I feel like we have a value of what it should be sold for. And I think that we have an opportunity to sell $250,000 worth of soil at that rate, but I don't know what that, again, still.
I hope Greg has an answer for.
As do I.
Yeah. If we can look at it in a different way. So we
Yes.
can measure, yeah. The fuel, I've been so impressed with the addition of the fuel and over the past year, what they've sold. You know, it's shocking when I come to the meetings, and it's like they're burning through that fuel every month, and it's a great asset.
Yes, in fact, there was a semi there unloading more fuel this morning. We have the 4 helicopters on the field for cherry drying right now. The first of the fire helicopters is there from Washington Department of Natural Resources. The Fire Boss aircraft on the Oregon contract will be there on the 15th. And it's just a matter of now, I know that Sherman County's already had, over the last week, they've already had about 8 fires. So I think it's feeling a little dicey for fire this year.
Well, I would just like to say, you came in with an idea to expand the revenue and to build stuff on the airport, and you're doing a great job bringing in the dollars and continuing to find ways to find the dollars so that you can get these big projects done. So I just can't thank you enough for all the work you're continuing to put in.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm thankful you're a considerate shopper. I know we talk about auctions and all kinds of things to get what you need, and I appreciate that rather than just going out and buying new.
Yeah. One of the things too, I was going to say, Mr. Christopher, something else that the city of the Dalles is throwing in is I've got 2 new vehicles that they just, there's a different process in Oregon, but they've actually given me a 2007 Ford Expedition that's sitting outside, all labeled up and lighted up for the airport, and a grounds maintenance pickup. that they're able to do some of that, that there's no expense tied
You should
to.
have said two new to me vehicles.
New to be, but
2007, not new, it's new to me.
you should have seen what I was driving before that. Or I was using my own personal vehicle, so there's definitely some investment there, and I think that some of those, to satisfy some of those conversations, I think those are meetings that we definitely need to have, and just make sure that there's a lot of good things going on from both sides.
There is.
I appreciate that. It's great support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up. Okay, 10:45 and we have,
Do we need, for that ground lease, do we know,
Jeff?
does the board have to make a motion? Does it need to go on a consent agenda for a ground lease? Or is that something that goes in front of the city what is the process on the ground lease?
The ground lease, has it gone before the city and approved by the city already? So it will come to us in a packet to the girls?
It was,
It was in
Oh,
there,
it's
okay.
in consent today.
It was, okay. Want to make sure it was the same one,
Well, anybody read the packet, they'd have found it.
just making sure. Thank you. Right. Update 10:45, update for Sheriff Songer and staff.
Before we start, Mr. Sheriff, I found something interesting in the bills last week for an oil change on a 1997 Toyota Tacoma that I didn't even know you guys had. What do you use that for?
No.
Oh, wait, no, it's,
Okay. As I say, I did a little researching and was told it was an old seizure. And it was an oil change and a wiper blades and a turn signal. And I'm like, God, what do they use this for? Transport to, people getting to and from conferences or something? So I just had no idea, but that's good answer.
I didn't see it even. Sitting next to it. I just don't want Jake sliding this way.
So we have the chair.
Yeah,
It was a
Maybe it's-
BOA meeting last night.
didn't even see it.
We've got the fifth friend. I don't know where, maybe that was the other one.
I'm
I
sorry for
thought
the-
Jake was gonna show up with mini-me later, so that's what I thought it was.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First item on the agenda here for sheriff's update. There were a total of 5,805 calls for service from January 1 to 2024 to June 3rd of this year. In addition to the calls for service, deputies served a total of 749 civil papers during the same time period. Item 2, effective June 1st this year, 2024, I appointed Chief Jail Administrator Lauren Colt to a different management position of Chief Criminal Deputy for the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office in accordance with RCW 41.14.070. Chief Criminal Deputy Lauren Colt's salary and benefits will continue to be paid out of the Sheriff's Administration budget. Chief Criminal Deputy Lauren Colt will continue to manage the jail operation until, if and when, the Board of County Commissioners officially takes the jail away from the sheriff. Item 3, the Sheriff's Town Hall meeting held at the Goldendale Grange on Saturday, May 25th at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. was a success. It got a little heated at times, but everyone had a comment or question was called upon to speak. In my opinion, that is an example of freedom under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Washington State Constitution. I still believe the best way the county commissioners could have handled the county jail issue was to have a special election and have the people of Klickitat County vote on one of the 4 options. Do not shut down our county jail, make improvements, and that may be needed, operating the jail under the sheriff. Build a new jail operating under the sheriff. Contract the jail inmates with Norcor in the Dells, Oregon. And the other item would have been, the Klickitat County Commissioners take over the jail and run it themselves, which appears to be the direction with option 3, I believe it was. What bothers me is we still have option, what is it, option 2 sitting there, which means the county commissioners could end up contracting with Norcor for part of the jail, booking, holding, and so forth, which would still eliminate some of our jail employees. There would be some needed to operate under that guideline, but the concern is that I have personally, and I know my staff members do, and the employees of the jail, their morale has gone in the toilet because of their actions. And it doesn't seem to be really any concern about that. So if I think it was down to one choice, you folks taking the jail over, I'd prefer to have it. But if you folks are bound and determined to take the jail over, then you run it, and let's forget about option 3 in Norcor, period. Just one option, you take it over. And I would be curious, how much money do we have in the county reserve fund? Is a question.
I don't have the exact number on the top of my head. 10 to 12 million is the number that's on my head. I could be wrong without looking at the book, so.
And I agree with that.
But it's in that range. It was closer to 20 within the 3 years before we took office.
And some of that is restricted funds too.
Yeah, a big chunk of it, about 5 million is restricted.
Well, 5 million is reserved. So that's your emergency reserve, but then there's also restricted funds.
And what is the restricted fund? I'm not familiar with it.
It can't be used for general purpose dollars. It has specific requirements of what it can be used for.
Okay. I would.
So as an example, case PETA dollars, we get 0.09% of sales tax to spend to build up economic development per se. There's about 2.3 million in that fund. That's sitting over there as part of that, but it can only be used on economic development.
I understand.
So that's restricted. That's example of.
Yeah, I understand.
For all those people out there, I knew you understood, but
yeah,
the people in Zoom land may not have understand that comment.
The other comment I would make, and then I'll turn it over. If you have any questions, I'll turn it over to Carmen, my undersheriff. I know there's research being done right now for the transition period and so forth. And obviously, we will cooperate as much as we can to make that happen, if that is the final decision. But I would only suggest, strongly suggest, once some research is done, so you really have true money figures at what it costs, put it out to a special vote of the public. All of us elected officials, the public is our boss. This is a major, major action you're taking with the possibility of closing the jail down or changing and creating a new Department of Corrections for the county. I'm telling you right now, you do not have a clue what you're getting into. But you don't have to take my word for it. You may regret what you wish for. But I'm saying, why not give the public say so in this process? They are our bosses. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
No, thank you, Sheriff. And I want to apologize to all of you for the last couple of months from this board. And I very much want to take the opportunity to apologize to all of your staff, which sounds like soon will become our staff. I've talked to many of them. They've voiced grave concerns of the change of who will now be their boss. So I hope this board going forward looks at them and acts in accordance to not upset that apple cart any more than it's already upset that apple cart. That's about as clear as I can.
Commissioner Christopher, I'd like to thank you. You're the only commissioner up here sitting that has taken the time to walk through that jail and talk to the employees after the bombshell was dropped on us on March 29th. The only commissioner. And that's to your credit. Thank you.
No questions?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to start off with some patrol news from the Patrol Division. Sergeant Fred Killian has announced he will be retiring as of June 30th, 2024. Sergeant Killian has served with the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office for 30 years, and he is not only an excellent leader, but he has been a role model, a mentor to many new deputies, and he will be missed by his teammates and, of course, the administration. I can't thank Fred enough for his dedication to the Sheriff's Office and his continued service to our department and to the citizens of Klickitat County. On a side note, when I first started in the jail back in 1999, I was able to do a lot of ride-alongs with Fred throughout the county, and he was the traffic stop wizard. It's unfortunate that the state changed the rules on tabs in the front on the license plates, because he knew that color combination and he'd flip on a car for expired tabs in a heartbeat. That generates revenue. Unfortunately, that revenue declines when you don't have that information from the front of the vehicle anymore. He was a wizard at it. On May 29th, I also had the honor of attending the Washington State Patrol Awards ceremony in Vancouver. They presented life-saving awards to Klickitat County deputies Randy Wells, Dusty Vorse, and Chance LaRue for their heroic actions that saved the life of Trooper Anthony Maton on June 19th, 2023. As many of you may recall, Trooper Maton was en route to a call out on Highway 142 when he missed a corner and he took out a tree. It's truly a miracle that Trooper Maton not only survived, but has been continuing to do so well since that tragic day. Our deputies are very close with Trooper Maton and will continue that relationship. On other news, Detective Kirsten LaRue has returned from FMLA, and we're glad to have her back. Her caseloads are already growing pretty quickly in the week she's returned. I handed her 2 new ones this morning, so she's going to be busy along with Detective Bianchi. And we can't thank those 2 enough for the dedication it takes as a detective and all the cases that they get loaded onto them. Traffic safety, May 20th through May 31st was a statewide seatbelt patrol Klickitat ticket. May 1st through May 31st, statistics. There were 58 traffic infractions issued in Klickitat County, 10 criminal traffic citations issued, and 5 non-traffic criminal citations issued by our deputies. Marine Patrol, the Washington State Department of Transportation has allowed us to store one of our vessels in their yard in Bingen. This will provide a faster response to any water emergency on the west end of Klickitat County. Currently, the Osprey is temporarily out of service while it awaits repairs to the prop. Unfortunately, an underwater log was hit during a routine marine patrol last weekend.
Question?
Yeah.
Because I'm the boat guy. She knew it was coming. Are you getting it in a prop place to rebuild, or are you hanging a new prop on it?
I think we're exploring some different avenues actually with that. Whatever's more economical.
My recommendation is props are fairly cheap. I actually carry one in the boat.
Yeah, it's
along with the wrench.
So it's not only the prop, it's.
Oh, you damaged the lower unit too.
Yeah.
Ooh, whoops.
Yeah, the log was about 18 inches underwater. Nobody could see it.
Yeah, if you hit the lower unit, you're $6,000. I know how that works. I don't carry a spare. But I would think carrying a spare prop isn't a bad idea,
Right.
Because it happens a lot. And if you might just have to pull to a beach and replace the thing in order to get back to the boat ramp.
Thankfully, Ken Clinton has got a lot of experience with vessels, and he's been working diligently trying to find the most economic way to repair this. So we need a quick repair. Boating season is here. So.
Yeah.
We still have our, the jet skis also, so we have them available and the purple boat, so. we
Purple
still-
boat's a prop too, is it not?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Before I read my last message, I'd like to do a side note. I've been working closely with Aaron Quinn from Public Health and Tyrone Bryan from Behavioral Health Departments. We've been working on improving the type of services that have been offered in the jail. One thing we've started doing, and we've done it 2 weeks now, is having Erin go through, and her and I have walked through and we talk to each inmate. She looks at any, if they've had any medical questions, we ask them questions about jail transitions for housing or things like that. And we also ask, again, if they'd like to participate in any of the 4 different classes that are through behavioral health. So those referrals are filled out right then and there, and then they're processed. One thing that I'd like to say too, we had an inmate who was trying to get his birth certificate. There are funds actually available that the state pays, so the Aaron was able to secure the birth certificate, one of the inmates. That way, when he gets out, he's got his documents that he needs to get his driver's license or any kind of, other legal documents that you may need with a birth certificate. So those kind of services have expanded, and it's really a blessing to have Aaron on our side and Tyrone as we make these changes. I've worked really, really hard since I come back in 2017 to improve the behavior health and the medical health for the inmates. And this is only encouraging that it's going to keep improving. So thankfully, we have Aaron, who's just as strong-willed and pig-headed as I am to make things better. So I've attached, you'll see in here, it's called the Klickitat County Jail Summary. It's a report I issued 2 weeks ago. In it, it's got a lot of the jail history. It's got facility information. And I'd like to point out the facility costs for jail upgrades. These are not costs that come out of the jail's budget, but the amounts that come out from Public Works. There's been over $1.3 million invested into the Klickitat County Jail since 2020. These improvements include the air handler and chiller system, the camera system, a control board room upgrade, our rolling slider doors, our east Sallyport door, clothes dryer, our west Sallyport door. Of course, the jail was re-roofed and a washing machine. Now, that doesn't include all the minor repairs and things that go on a regular basis.
Isn't there a refrigerator scheduled for this year too?
I
thought we put that in the
think
budget
there
last
could
year.
be.
Okay, anyway, sorry, I digress.
So I also gave a pretty detailed list, and these were just things that I could remember off the top of my head. There's privacy panels and shower doors, and I can't remember the tune of those. Was like, I know it was over 30,000 for those, and that's not included in that $1.3 million. There was a kitchen remodel prior to my arrival in 2017. Of course, the remodel of the control room, the control board replacement with a touchscreen system. When the commander from Franklin County come into our jail, he was pretty impressed not only with the actually the overall condition of our building, because while it is old, it has been most parts have been pretty well maintained. Are there rooms for improvement? Of course, every building would have that. He was most impressed with the kitchen. He said he goes usually into a kitchen of that age that there is mold on walls and areas of the floor. I can say without a doubt, our kitchen is probably cleaner than most restaurant kitchens, and I'm pretty proud of that. The inmates actually do all of the cleaning in that kitchen, and that says a lot about themselves. and the pride that they take in the work that they do in the kitchen. It was recently inspected from the health department because we do have to be regularly inspected like other restaurants. We've had monitors added to our control room, so it looks like a whole lit up screen now in a control room that used to just be 4 black and white monitors. Our intercom systems have been replaced. We had a room remodel for criminal record storage. We've had interior sliding doors replaced, the washer dryer, the kitchen mixer, the vehicle sally port doors, the HVAC, the jail roof removed and replaced, and repairs of damaged sheetrock from prior roof leaks, repairs and cleanup in the kitchen and mechanical following the flood caused by the frozen pipes in the fire suppression system. Our attorney room was updated with monitor for video court, and it also includes a phone that receives calls. We have 24-hour attorney access in our jail, whether it be by phone or in person. We have kiosks that have been installed for video visitation, commissary, law library, and 6 of the 8 cell blocks. 2 of the cell blocks did not fit the qualifications for the kiosk because they could not, you have to be very careful where you place it so they can't see someone using the bathroom or shower. So it was opted out not to put them in those 2 places. And there's a kiosk in the library for the people who reside in those cell blocks. The inmate phone system was also upgraded. I'd like to note that the kiosk and the inmate phone system was at no cost to the taxpayers. And in fact, the money generated off the phones and kiosks provides money for the inmates. For the last 2 years, it's generated over $23,000 for the inmate fund. Those funds we've used to purchase TVs and new not only the monitors, but a secure, what do you call those, box that will be able to have the corrections deputies access them when a TV needs to be reprogrammed. The current outdated ones require the use, we have to have buildings and grounds come over and do them to reset the TV, taking up valuable time that they clearly don't really have. And then the cable television, we purchased antenna a couple years ago so that the inmates get free TV. We took out the cable costs so the taxpayers don't pay for them to watch TV. So those are some of the facility information. I think it's important for people to know we do run a pretty well organized facility down there, and corrections deputies and control board operators work really hard to maintain that facility. The cleaning is all done by inmates or by jail staff. We do not have any outside sources come in and do any cleaning unless, of course, we have to call in like ServPro to clean a cell when we've had Picassos in a cell block. We are, and he's going to note all of our different staffing. I did detail the difference between crisis, mental health, and competency because those are 2 very different things. And so that people would understand that. All of our different programs. One thing I did forget on our inmate programs is our MRT class, and that is by a certified trainer. In here, I put facility condition on my last page. And this is only my opinion, not those of Public Works or Buildings and Grounds. It's just from what I could see. We have a vehicle sally port ceiling replacement. I think that would be really nice not to have the nasty stuff hang down out of the ceiling. It's caused by antennas when we go through. It's because it's a drop ceiling. But I think it's an area that could be improved with a ceiling adjustment and some new upgraded LED lighting. The mechanical room, I don't know what the plan is for that. Hopefully we have a plan in place for next winter so that we don't have the same debacle that we had this last winter. I really don't want to go through that again. Our laundry room storage area really could use an upgrade. It's would be pretty minimal with some shelving and some painting. Our booking room shower could use an upgrade to an ADA shower unit. And then we've talked several times about a body scanner. Honestly, we don't have room inside the jail for a scanner. An ideal thing that I could see is taking 2 parking spaces away from the parking lot area adjacent to the Sally Port, knock out a wall, put in a room there where those parking spaces would be, put the body scanner in. It would allow an inmate to come out of patrol car to be body scanned before they ever get into the jail facility. If they are found to have contraband within them, then of course the search warrant starts, and then they're transported up to the hospital for further treatment. That way that person never comes into the jail with drugs ingested. And of course, interior paint of walls and ceilings. Our services, we do need a 24-hour nurse, more psychiatric services on site, and a jail transition specialist. Any questions?
I'm good.
I thank you, Carmen, for spending the time to create that document. I'm sure it will help as we move forward.
Morning, Commissioners, and good morning to everyone watching online. The kiosk that Carmen mentioned, we have just recently updated those through the company that provides them so that the inmates can communicate with the corrections deputies electronically instead of the corrections deputies having to give them a piece of paper when they want to make a comment or make a complaint or a request. We're eliminating paper. So now they can just go to their kiosk, log in with their PIN number, and they can electronically fill out that form and send it right to the corrections deputies and get their answer electronically as well. So saves staff time from having to go back and forth from cell blocks just to deliver a piece of paper, and it saves on paper and time. The current inmate status, we have 27 people in custody currently, including 4 of them that are receiving a higher level of mental health treatment at other facilities. 1 is being transported there today, and then on the way back, they'll be bringing 1 back as well. So it'll remain at 4. Employees, we have 1 corrections deputy still gone for U.S. Army training. In addition, we have the 2 open corrections deputies position. 1 of our corrections deputies will be going to the academy here pretty soon, and another one scheduled for November. Originally, the one going in November was scheduled for April of 2026, believe it or not. But the state is finally breaking the backlog, opening more academies, and so he was moved from April 2026 to November this year, which is great. Before we got up here, you were talking about vent replacement, the vent covers. Something that has been brought up before as well that might want to be taken care of when the vents are getting replaced is the cleaning of the ductwork. I know it's been talked about before. There was a contractor that came through with Rick Millerin maybe a month or so ago to look at cleaning the ductwork because it is packed with lint and dust. I don't think it's probably been cleaned since the building was up. There's a lot of non-airflow in some of the areas of the jail. If you take the cover off and look in there, you can see it. Some of them are pretty packed. So I know that's in the works. I just wanted to mention that it should be done. It would be convenient to do when they're replacing those vent covers. Last week, the 2 cooks that we have in the jail kitchen received a certificate of appreciation and a cash award from Aramark, the contractor that does the food services for the jail, for the good work that they've been doing, providing meals for the inmates and passing all of their inspections with flying colors. They do an amazing job. There's 2 ladies that work in there as the cooks. They switch off and on, and they supervise the inmate workers that help prepare the food. When the inmates use the telephone, the texting devices and the tablets, a certain percentage of that money, and Carmen touched on this a little bit, a certain percentage of that money is put into an inmate welfare fund from the phone company. That money is to buy things to benefit the inmates directly and does not contain any taxpayer funds. With that money, a few weeks ago, we purchased new TV enclosures that Carmen mentioned and new TVs for the inmates. The current TVs are very small. I think they're like 19-inch TVs. They're set up in the corner ceiling in the day room, and they're hard for the inmates to see. We got larger ones, and the enclosures are professionally made for jails. They're made out of metal. They have a simple key that the corrections deputies can use to open it, reset the TVs because occasionally they need to be reset. And like Under Sheriff Knopp said, it requires a call to maintenance now. They have to come in with their screw gun. There's about, I don't know, a dozen screws around the plexiglass that's around the, looks like homemade boxes for the TVs. They have to take all those screws out, take that plexiglass off, push the button to reset the screen, and then put all those screws back in. This will be a whole lot easier. We won't have to call maintenance to do any resetting on screens. And they're non-ligature by design. Sheriff Songer put out a call for an experienced jail manager to come and evaluate our jail and its operations not too long ago. The Franklin County Sheriff responded and sent his jail commander, Mr. Harmon, to our jail. Mr. Harmon has about 34 years worth of experience in corrections. He's also the person that the United States Department of Justice called to implement and train corrections officers for prisons in operation in Iraq. If you remember on the news, the scandal that was Abu Ghraib prison, well, Mr. Harmon was the person they called over there to fix that situation. He was a correctional advisor for 2 prisons in Iraq for a couple of years. He had a total of 1,456 inmates. He was also in charge of training 3,800 corrections officers with policies and procedures, setting up middle management, and ensuring inmate and officer safety. Mr. Harmon and I met and talked together, and then he also talked to our staff quite extensively. He asked many questions. He toured our jail, took notes, and took pictures. When he was done, he complimented me on our operations, our staff, and our kitchen. In short, he was very impressed and saw no reason at all to close or even think about closing the Klickitat County Jail. His report, complete with his resume, is included along with the pictures that he took while he was there. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do not. Thank you. Lots of detail in the report, which I already got. I gave them a copy already as well, so they might have seen it.
Have any questions?
I like all the detail.
Are you talking the 3-page report? You're saying there's a lot of detail in, Commissioner Christopher?
3-page report?
For Mr. Harmon, or which report are you talking about?
Well, you have the Harmon report and not part of this, which is well more than 3 pages. And then you have the Carmen report.
Yeah, there's the Carmen.
But both of them are well longer than 3 pages.
Yeah, the Harmon report is 3 pages of, well, 2.5 pages of writing. Carmen's is much longer. And I didn't see in Mr. Harmon's report that he made any recommendations. He had a conclusion, but he didn't put actual recommendations. So I'm glad that he gave you those verbally, though.
Yeah, he did.
I don't believe he had any recommendations.
Other than he was really surprised that our jail was looking at being closed because he thought that the services we offer to our inmates and what's going on in the jail for the good. We are far advanced of other jails our size across the state. We have much more amenities, I guess, with
Cleaner, nicer,
programs.
fresher, more well
Absolutely
paid.
cleaner.
I don't know if you guys have seen some pictures of some other small counties in the state. That I kid you not is cinder block walls that have holes in the cinder block. It looks like
Absolutely.
people have been punctured through. And this is their holding room and just absolute dilapidation that people should never be housed in something like that. And then we have this that I wouldn't say I want to be housed in it, but boy, this is this is the Hilton compared to the Shamrock Inn down the road,
Well,
I
I really
forgot to-
think the cleanliness of the jail attributes to the very few cases of COVID we had. I would like to bring up the fact that during COVID, during the onset of COVID, we made immediate changes to the way we were doing our operations. We had an inmate out cleaning every 3 hours with bleach water, every door handle, every wall, every elevator, anywhere people were putting their hands were cleaned. We did not have our first case of COVID within the jail with an inmate till after the first year of COVID. And then we only had 2 cases. One, the guy wasn't even symptomatic. He was joking around, wanting out of jail. Said, I've got COVID, we tested. Well, guess what he did? He just spent 2 weeks in a hold cell. And then the
Oops.
other case was very mild. And he was segregated, of course, and,
But
we-
jails are historically known to have a lot of staph infections and
Correct.
you guys
We
just
do
don't
not.
have that. So
And I forgot to mention that Sheriff Songer put out a while ago that anybody's welcome to call and come and go through the jail. And I've given 2 tours last week to citizens, and that offer is still open to anyone, including the commissioners. If you'd like to come over, we can walk through and look at the jail and the operations. But it's also open to citizens as well. They just call ahead and.
And I remember that, Carmen. I believe it was Commissioner Christopher and I who both took a tour of the jail, or one of the first weeks we became commissioners, we took a tour of the jail. And you showed us everything that you'd been doing to protect the inmates and all the lengths that you went to with how many bottles of bleach you had down there. So thank you. And that goes to show how much you do care and have always cared. So you say there's 27 people currently in the jail. 4 of them are at other facilities. How many of those are county? How many of them are city inmates? Do we know?
The ones at the other facilities?
No, in the jail currently.
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I could find that out and get it to you if you want.
Could you please? Thank you. It was one of the questions. And then if you have the averages, it was on the 8 pages of questions I had, that was those averages. Because in order for staff or a consultant or anybody else to move forward, they need to know what the average number of cities cases are, the average number of county, and then DOC, Fish and Wildlife, anybody else throughout the year. It's in the list of questions, but if you could get that, that would be great. And I appreciate your willingness to work with staff as we move forward. Staff gave me a call and told me that that means a lot.
Absolutely. The biggest concern I think that we all have is the people working over there. You got corrections deputies that are top notch, and I'm not joking. They are. They're not only good people, they do a really, really good job over there. And you've got decades of experience.
And then my other question, I'm glad that the legislation went forward so that we could get some more corrections classes, and that pushed one person up further. How many other people are still left who are going to need training?
Those are the 2.
Those are the only 2, and then, but we're hiring for 2 more. Hopefully we can get laterals. If not, and then on here, it says one of the deputies will be going to the academy soon, and another one is scheduled. So after that, is it still out April, or if we hire 2 people, could it be a year?
It varies. It just depends on the state and how many classes they're going to
Okay.
have.
or a cancellation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Is
I would like to add one point I forgot to mention, and I think it's important. During that town hall meeting, Mrs. Hadapat, mother of the deceased, made it clear she did not want to see the jail shut down. And she requested a tour of the jail. And I'd open that with open arms. And I would love to give her a tour of the jail. But I just wanted the board to know that comment was made by her.
Is there, I saw that you were videoing and you had it posted online live from that, and then it stopped when the video started. Did you record the question and answer session, and have you posted that online? I can't find it anywhere.
It was, I think, 3.5 hours long, and I have not got it posted online yet.
Okay, could you
With
send
my
that to me?
internet it'll take a long time.
Okay, could you send that to me when you get it posted?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a couple more.
Okay.
But, I know it was brought up during public comment on the press release, and I believe we got a copy of this press release sent to us yesterday or this morning. So it is in your inbox. It's from Columbia Gorge News, but it was the first I saw, but it had a date on it of May 22nd. So it didn't look like it was.
Inadvertently, that date was from an old, it's been dated June 3rd.
Okay, so it is recent. Okay, so I did have one in there that I do think that it's appropriate to respond to. Sheriff Songer, you write, it is clear that Commissioners Zoller and Anderson flat out lied to the sheriff, his employees and other enforcement agencies, and the public at large when Commissioners Zoller and Anderson stated that they had a contract with Norcor to house inmates on April 12th and would be closing the jail by April 30th, 2024.
Correct.
I want to go back to the original motion that was made on the 29th. And it said, and it was a motion that I made. Commissioner Zoller made a motion, that motion died. The motion I made was to direct staff to move forward with negotiations with Norcor to providing jail services for Klickitat County under RCW 7048-090. And then staff and Commissioner Zoller are further authorized to negotiate with the cities of White Salmon, Bench, and Goldendale, all that. The point in there is that the BOCC, at no point did we claim that a contract with Norcor had already been secured by April 12th.
Well, that's not quite accurate, is it? Commissioner Zoller said by April 12th, inmates will be moved to Norcor. By the end of April, the jail will be shut down, and that's why the negotiations with the union was severance packages, because their jobs would be gone by the end of April. Now, if that's not an implication that there's a contract in place, I don't know what the hell is. That gave that impression.
Okay, I want to be very clear that it was the board's direction to staff to initiate negotiations. Part of that, according to requirements that staff explained to us, was we had to set a date so that we could initiate negotiations so that we could come up with the numbers. I wanted to be very clear, though, is that we did not lie. We did not say there was a contract in place, because the motion was to allow the negotiations to take place, because otherwise Commissioner Zoller would be out on a limb negotiating when the board had not given her the authority to do that.
And
That was the purpose of the
Can you
motion.
explain to me, Commissioner, why it was that Commissioner Zoller said those inmates were going to be transported to Norcor by April 12th? Yeah. Okay. Well, you can dodge that bullet all you want, but the bottom line is you guys fabricated that, and the morale in that department went to hell. You never contacted us ahead of time because you don't consider me, you say it's not political. You know it's political. You didn't contact me ahead of time to sit down and say, hey, Sheriff, we got to look at some other options to do here. One of them we're thinking about is possibly contracting with Norcor. Another one, we want to see what it's going to take to bring our jail up to a standard where we're comfortable with. Nothing. crickets. March 29th, right out of the chute, here comes Miss Zoller, Commissioner Zoller. I'm taking the lead on this. By April 12th, those inmates will be moved over to Northport, and the jail will be closed down by the end of April. What led credence to that is that there was in process, the county was negotiating with the union for severance packages for 16 of our employees because they would be out of a job by April 12th. Anybody with a lick of common sense is going to understand that's the move you're making. We had a contract. The only reason you got caught up in that is because I talked to two sheriffs who's on Northport board. There's apparently two boards there, but under the Northport board. And both of them indicated to me, Bob, they do not have a contract. It would take 6 months to get a contract if we chose to even contract with Klickitat County. Then they went into further things about if you contract, all arrests made in Klickitat County would have to be booked in Klickitat County, and they would have to be cleared medically before they'd be accepted by Northport. Now, with that 1,000 hours of research that Commissioner Zoller and her staff did, apparently didn't pick up on that part of it. But what I'm saying is the impression you gave, Commissioner Zoller gave, and you backed 100%, was that those inmates were going to be moved by April 12th, even said by April 12th, and the jail be buttoned down, closed by the end of April, because they'd have to button things up within the jail. Was that said or not said?
You are missing a very key word there, Sheriff, and that is intent. Part of the motion was with the intent of April 12th. And that is so that the negotiations could continue. What you did is you said that we were lying when the motion clearly stated it would begin negotiations, and there is an intent with closure. That's allows allows staff to start negotiations. Nowhere.
You can color it any way you want to color it. In my opinion, the two of you lied to the sheriff's office and the employees of that sheriff's office and the public at large, as well as the other agencies that contract with us for jail. They were caught off guard. So you may take exception to my observation of that deal, but that's my observation.
And secondly, I hope that we can move beyond the personal attacks. The decision has been made. The personal attacks that you put in your press release calling Commissioner Zoller power hungry, and that if people do not bow down to her, she will show them who's boss. I've never seen that from Commissioner Zoller. I've never seen that attitude nor those actions from Commissioner Zoller.
I have.
Okay. And that is your opinion, and I can respect your opinion.
All right.
But that's your personal opinion.
No, it's a professional opinion.
But I would also like to point that in your press release, you're asking for a special election, and you're saying that we need to move to a special election.
Absolutely.
I just want to note that none of the other counties who have went through this exact same process, including Clark, Benton, or Spokane, have done that. So we are following the process that's already been started everywhere else, that's been followed everywhere else.
That's a good point you're making, Commissioner, but in those other counties where there's an uprising by the citizens out there, that they wanted their jail to remain where it was, the big answer to that is no. This county, they are concerned. And I would think you're the servant to the people that elected you to office. And that goes for the Board of County Commission as well as myself. The public is your boss. You would think you'd have the common courtesy to put it to a special vote, however it shook out, whether it was for contracting, whether the sheriff no longer has the jail, we would live by whatever the voter decided. And I would think that would have been a good plus for you two to do that. The only one that's showing any common sense in regards to this mess is Commissioner Christopher. The only one. And yeah, am I upset? You damn right I'm upset. Because you don't know what the 16 employees have been going through. They have kids. They got medical bills. They don't know whether they got a job tomorrow, 6 months from now, and this second choice about going to Norcor and we'd book them here and stuff. You think that makes them feel any better? A year down the road, you shut this one down or partly shut it down, they still don't know whether they're gonna have jobs or not. That's ridiculous. If you're gonna make the move, button up and take the move and take the jail over. If that's your intent, I'd prefer to have it under the sheriff. You can beat me up all you want. I could care less. I think I've proven that to you. But if you're not going to allow the sheriff to be under it, and I'm not arguing that the board doesn't have the authority to take over the jail. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do it, take over the jail. Forget about Norcor, period.
And I would like to state that it is my opinion that in the last couple of weeks, members of this board, when answering citizen comment or whatever, have made little snide remarks and poked here and poked there at the people sitting at that desk. That if you would like them to not poke at you, this board probably shouldn't poke at them. Let's just stick to the facts of the matter and not get into the weeds on it. And no matter how many times I try to bring this up, it happened again today. And it's like, I don't know how you can resolve an issue of personal differences when there continues to be comments, is my point.
And for the record, I'd just like to say, in all of this, from all of everything I've seen, neither Commissioner Zoller nor I have talked about you personally. We have not put out any press releases about the sheriff or your staff. We have not made personal attacks on the radio or in public or anything else. We've been acting professionally, looking at the facts, trying to deal with a situation that I honestly, none of the three of us sitting up here wanted to have put in front of us. We have a lot of other things that we have to manage.
Special election would solve that, wouldn't it? And furthermore, with due respect, I don't buy it. About your bad mouthing the sheriff? No, I don't buy it.
Thank you.
May I, just one comment?
Sure.
In the end of all this, whatever your decision is going to be, there's people's lives, county employees, people that work for you. Their lives are kind of in limbo right now. I mean, imagine if your job, your bosses said that on such and such a date, you're not going to have a job anymore. And then that's backed off of a little bit and you still don't know for weeks on end. Just the human compassion part is get to a decision. Let them know because it's stressful. Like Sheriff said, they have kids, they have bills, they have car payments, and they're up in the air as far as what they know. If you're going to let them go, let them go. Let them know it's coming so that they can move.
With that, and for the sake of the employees, I believe there was clarification to staff, but I'm hearing from the general public that they are still confused on whether it's option 2 or option 3. So I'm hoping today we can clarify for ourselves. I'm under the interpretation that we're moving towards option 3, which is the Board of Commissioners taking over the jail. If I'm under the interpretation that that was essentially the motion. So if that's true, that is the initial where the board is directed and heading forward today, it might be wise to reiterate that so that staff over there has a little more breathing room. And if that's also the case, then we need to arrange with HR to work with civil service to try to fill the 2 positions that are available. And do whatever else we can to facilitate hanging up TVs, and all those things that have been denied for the last month.
One point, if I may. What would go a long ways to improve the morale? Because I know there's 2 of you who'll never have that under the sheriff. We're not kidding each other, okay? make a motion to do away with option 2 and just do option 3.
Because I made the motion, so I'll speak to the motion. The motion was to begin the process of creating a corrections department, which means that it would fall underneath the Board of County Commissioners.
Correct.
Okay, that was the motion. The motion also included that we will continue and we will find an outside consultant to continue looking at option 3 or option 2, because while we have a lot of information from our staff on the finances and what can be done, there's still a lot of questions, like the 8 pages of questions that I gave to the sheriff for answering, that hopefully most of those questions an outside consultant can get answered so that we can make that decision on option 2 or option 3. But that was the decision of the board, that for the time being, once we pass a resolution, it would create the Department of Corrections and it would roll underneath. Nothing else would change, except for possibly jail manager. Other than that, nothing else would change for this foreseeable future until that happened. How long that takes? It took 2 months just to get the report from staff. We don't know how long it'll take to get all the answers. So yes, I understand where staff is coming from, where they're worried about their positions. I'm sure, every 4 years, the people on this board have to worry about whether or not they'll have a job. And so that's, or as well as you and every other elected. So we all know that feeling of uncertainty where you could lose your job. What I can tell you is that everybody's not being, I can tell staff, everybody's not being let go anytime within the next month or 2 months, because it takes a lot of work to do this. Even if we went with option 2, which we've seen the numbers and we're going to have to refine those numbers, and that's going to take time.
And yesterday, do you believe that, we want to move forward? We want to move forward quickly. Time is of the essence for everyone in this situation. And I believe yesterday staff reached out about that critical person that we need to hire to cross our T's and dot our I's to make sure we do make the right decisions. And I think they had a conversation with you yesterday, and that it would be through risk management, had a very educated, involved specialists that could come in. And I think they talked to you about that yesterday, and you said that would be appropriate for you under what you think they could look at.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not standing here, even though I have real questions about you two. I'm not standing here to make a roadblock. If your final decision is to take the jail over, we'll work for the transition. We'll cooperate with the transition. Chief Criminal Deputy Newly, Lauren Cole, will continue to look over the operation of the jail until you folks make a final decision and appoint a jail administrator or whoever you put in that position. Our best interest is for those employees. That's the bottom line. And, I still think the best option, and it'll be for you personally, I still think that the special ballot is not a bad idea. And I don't think it's too late to do that. But it's going to be called upon you guys to make that decision. And I know other agencies have not done it, but we're not other agencies. We're not other counties. We have people in this county that are concerned about the jail being shut down. I think you've heard that. And I think there was like 200 people in this room one day and 100 on the Zoom voicing their concerns. And there'll be going to be people with different opinions. But the bottom line is the voter would make the decision, and I think it'd work out for the best.
Can the board agree on this? To advise the board chair to reach out to the auditor to see if we even have the legal option to put an advisory vote on the ballot, because I believe we've asked about this before with like the dog pound or something. And the auditor said, because we don't have a population great enough, we don't have the ability to do an advisory vote. But I want clarification, so.
I do have that on my list here.
Okay.
To ask the auditor that, but that's.
That would give us the knowledge to make a decision.
But I also would like to offer too, as an elected official, you can reach out to the auditor too and ask for that. I know Grant County when they built their new jail and planned and dreamed and worked on all of their engineering. They went to their auditor. The sheriff actually went to the auditor to ask for that special limit, and it went through their department. County
Right.
commissioners don't have to do all those things.
Yeah, I was involved in Clark County's new jail back in the day. And if if they ever come up with the money to build a new jail, and that's a big question mark because we're talking a lot of money, I would suggest you build it not for a 60-bed facility, build it for 100 or 120-bed facility. We built that 300-bed facility in Clark County in the first year it was full. They've ended up double bunking. They have over 400 inmates in that jail now. But the thing is, if you overbuild, that's not all bad because you can rent those beds out to the feds and bring revenue back into the county. So there's different ways and options of looking at it. And there may be even some grant money out there to help build jails. That's not to say that the county would get off without paying anything. Obviously, the county's going to have to pay some money, but I don't see that happening in my lifetime, to be quite honest with you.
Probably mine.
I know you've talked about it every year during budget about building a new jail, and I agree with you. I don't see it anytime in our lifetimes, which is sad. I do have one more question, if I may.
Sure.
Sheriff, could you please give an explanation on why an inmate was pre-released without a judge's orders or notification to the PA's office, the city prosecutor, or the victim?
See, here we go. This is my point a minute ago. Why does it have to be public and not offline?
It's just, we've heard a lot about it. I think, I want to get it out there.
Because my first concern and my main concern when it comes to inmates is their health and welfare. And I did not wait. I probably supposed to, according to the court rules, but I did not wait.
Do we have protocols and policies that are written down for pre-release? I don't have any idea. Is there something that we have internally?
There are steps to take if you have the time to go through them. But like I said, and I'm not going to get deeper into the weeds than this, when it comes to an inmate's health and welfare, that's first priority for me.
Okay.
And I would also hope that this board, as it sets up its Department of Corrections, which of course there will be a chain of command, that they set it up with some tool that if the corrections deputies find someone that they feel is being neglected, being mistreated, is the wrong place for them, suicide risk, whatever, and they go to their director, which is our employee, and get nowhere, that we set up some avenue that they can get around that chain of command for the health, safety, and welfare of the inmate without disciplinary action. And that's what I look at what Mr. Culp did, maybe it's policy be damned, but he did it with the intent of looking out for the health, safety, and welfare of the inmate.
Absolutely.
And I thank him for it.
I can tell you, as sheriff, if we have an inmate that's sick and needs to get to the hospital, I'm not going to worry about the prosecutor. I'm not going to worry about the judge. It's my responsibility to get that person to the hospital. And there's a case we're well aware of. We tried to go through the steps and got nowhere. Finally took that young lady to the hospital emergency room because of her conditions. And voila, after that happened, we got a furlough to get her into a mental institution. So no, we do care about those inmates and the employees do. And we're not going to worry about if somebody's having a heart attack. Wait a minute, let's check with the prosecutor, let's check with the judge to see if we can release them. And we're going to release them.
We don't, whenever we call 911 and they show up to take someone to the hospital, as you've given us an overview when you had that issue with the 911 person or the ambulance person, we don't get a release just to take them to the hospital. We call 911 and we take them to the hospital. We don't do a release, correct?
Correct, but when the hospital is recommending that they be transported to another facility, whether that be Portland, Seattle, Yakima, Tri-Cities by helicopter, then that's when those decisions are made to quickly release that inmate from custody.
Or send
It's-
2 deputies with them on the helicopter because they're still. in
Correct.
custody.
Or
Which we're not gonna
or
do.
the flight life is $30,000 bill.
100,000.
100,000.
Sorry.
Right.
I said
So,
no.
so
What I'm getting at is I'm not trying to throw shade here. What I'm saying is that usually we have an issue with process. And that process needs to be fixed.
well, what?
And if this board is going to be having to take over the jail, then we want to ensure that the processes are adequate between the judge, the PA, the cities, and everything else.
That's an easy answer for you, Commissioner. Sheriff won't have anything to do with it.
Well, and unfortunately, I believe this is a can of worms that the board is now taking over. Because you're going to stick to a process where the prosecutor has to write a furlough that he refuses to write. And now you're gonna own the next one. But here we go.
I think we're going down a rabbit hole,
I don't disagree.
and I think we need to
Well, I would
move
just,
forward in a
I would-
positive.
I would just like if we're gonna be taking it over, one of the things that we give for the direction of the consultant when they're looking, because the consultant's gonna come in and do a full review of protocols, procedures and all this. If this is a procedure that needs fixed or a process that needs fixed, we need to give that direction.
And I don't think you're going to have to. With the quality of the person we're looking at that Bob has spoken to staff about, they've done these things before. I think they know their job, and I think they'll do a
Well,
good job.
I appreciate that, but as far as the chain of command under, say, the county commissioners, if they take it over, those other jails will have that in place already, so you could be able to easily get what their process is.
And that the question on furloughs for health and safety will definitely be asked and answered through this process with this special person we plan on bringing in. Because I want to know how all the other counties do it, not how we do it here. Because I'm going to be listening to how all the other counties do it, not our local legal opinion that is biased on the issue. Because to me, the reason we're here today is because we couldn't get a furlough. And I will not have
I think
my
we
board or
need
the future
to-
board not be able to get
Yeah.
a furlough.
And I think we should stop these conversations for now. We're just digressing into
Could I
fritter
just,
pratter.
just a quick reminder, medical emergencies and mental health emergencies don't happen 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. They happen in the middle of the night, on a weekend night, when we don't have access to the people that always make those decisions. I have previously been in front of a judge on a Monday morning after releasing an inmate. And the judge has looked at me and said, "What paperwork do you want me to write?"
Mhm. I think the judges, as long as you can explain the situation to them,
Absolutely.
they are more than willing to work with you and they trust your expertise.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we need to make sure that we have a procedure in place where our director or whatever can
So we'll work. through all
manage
of
the
it.
inmates. It's a question we'll answer.
Yep.
We still have payment approvals to do, by the way, before lunch. Just thought I'd pop that out. We accidentally skipped over.
But we haven't said goodbye to the sheriff yet. so-
I know, I'm just,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I just noticed
Yeah.
we skipped over them, so I was reminding
I
the board in
just
case nobody
have
knows.
one note for
Okay.
you. You can read my report.
Yes.
However, I forgot to write the word "to" in the actual to June.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
it.
That was easy. Thank you.
I do have a question on your part of it. You have to order new body cams. Well, do they have a lifetime on them? You just had body cams.
No, we have a annual fee of
Oh, that's-
70.
Okay, that's the annual. Got it.
Yeah,
Cause it said order new body cams or something. I'm like, huh?
That's part of the fee though. You don't.
that's
pay
the
upfront.
fee.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Done.
And we'll be due for a refresh for the equipment coming up, I believe, this next year.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Did we want to make a motion on the,
You ready to pass this?
yes,
Madam Chair, I move that we pay estimate number 1 and final to Klickitat County Courthouse HVAC Replacement Project 2023 in the amount of $75,188.30.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay estimate number 1 and final for the Pioneer Center HVAC Replacement Project 2024 in the amount of $159,304.25.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Other than saying I hate paying $200,000 for air conditioning, but I'll be done when it's over. I'll be happy when it's
All
over.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay estimate number 3 for the Fairground Sailbound Project in the amount of $122,409.21.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah, I will be extremely happy when we're done paying hundreds of $1,000s.
Except I have a
for-
feeling
Air
that as soon as
conditioners.
we're done, you start replacing the ones that are still
The other
there.
one.
I think you're gonna get at least 10 years out of an air conditioner. At this point, we've replaced them all in the last 3 years, so we probably got 5 years or so before we
Would
have to
sure hope
start
so.
putting them on a capital budget.
Sure.
Cause we replaced air conditioners that didn't need to be replaced essentially because they were behind the one that needed replaced was behind the 3 that didn't need replaced. So, yeah, hopefully it's
Madam
over for a while.
Chair, I would make a motion to recess for the lunch hour, noting we will be back at 1 o'clock.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
You could have zoomed the camera.
Good afternoon. We'll reopen our meeting for the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting for June 4th, 2024 for our afternoon session. And we will start with a public hearing for amending the Klickitat County 6-year Transportation Improvement Program for 2024 through 2029. So we'll declare the public hearing open. The purpose of the hearing is taking testimony regarding the proposed revisions and extension of the Klickitat County 6-year Transportation Improvement Program for the plan years 2024 through 2029, noting that this hearing is to amend and adopt the 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan. So, Mr. Hunter, would you like to give an overview?
Well, we give a quick overview. This is to amend the 6-year, but this is only to amend this year of the 6-year, the 2024. And it involves 3 projects. One is the Sundale Old Highway 8 project, which was on the 6-year. It's just, we needed to secure more funding when we got the grant way back in, I don't remember when it was, but we applied for what it was at the time, and it has increased 3 times. So essentially what we did is Seth went back to CRAB and secured the additional amount. We had 2.6 left over from our original 3.2 grant. And we were able to secure another almost $3 million. So which are actually $2 million. Sorry, I didn't do the math right. So it brings us up to 3.283. And so to do that, we needed to increase, or that was the first change we did on the 6-year, was just to increase the amount of funding for that. And that is all state funding. We also had to add back the white plastic edge lines. We were hoping to get it done last year. Weather didn't allow for it. So we had to put that back on, and that is funded by federal funds. So there's no county dollars in that. And then the last one, which is a new project, is the Bickleton Highway overlay in the Box Springs vicinity. And that is also federally funded for the tune of 2.4. We were able to secure more federal funding. So again, those are the totals. None of that is county dollars. It's all federal or state. And I think that concludes our testimony.
Thank you. So we'd like to open it for public comment. If you're called on, hopefully everyone will get it, or everyone will get a chance to speak, but please provide your name and address for the record. So is there anyone in the room that would like to comment on the road plan? Or here visiting today? Anyone online? No one. Looks like we may have a quiet day.
Well, not really. I was just kind of reviewing the map.
Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Or you just need a little bit of time first.
Well, we got it, sort of. Here. So I'm Andrew Smith, Klickitat County, and I was just going through this really quick. Are you guys gonna be able to finish the project this year?
Yes. Which project? Sorry. if there's
Well,
that.
well, I better say all three projects.
Bickleton Highway project will not be finished. The paver will not be done this year. It'll be done next year.
Okay, so it's a two parts.
Yeah, well, we have to have it on this year because the idea is to go to bid, award this year.
Right.
But we can't award something that we don't have a plan for.
Okay.
Or we've already made the budget adjustment. Even though we're gonna do it next year, I can't bring it to the board and say, will you award this? Because they're gonna say it's not on your plan.
Okay. It's fine. So it's a kind of a two
Yes.
part. All right. Free and then you get
Yes.
finally paid. All right. So, thank
Yeah,
you.
and you'll see on there's even projects that we're doing next year. This year,
Right.
we're doing engineering and da-da-da-da-da, and then next year you're actually putting shovels on the ground.
Right.
So,
Okay.
most things in there are multi-year.
I got it. Oh no, you guys are doing a good job. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone online yet? Seeing no one. Just one more time, we'll make sure there's no more public comment. So does the board have any clarification or questions?
I have one off-topic clarification for Mr. Seth. They sent you an email to give me projects and dollar amounts. Can we add to that, how much is federal, state, or local money? Because I'm sure if you're just compiling that 6-year plan from this year, last year, and the year before. So it just in a way that's very easy, one page, easy for the public to understand would be helpful. As far as the changes to these projects, I don't have any clarifications. I'm just happy we can use state and federal money to help fix our roads.
So the project you're talking about is the Bickleton Highway widening.
Microphone.
The project you're talking about is the Bickleton Highway widening 3400. Is that the one that you brought federal dollars to? 1/4 mile west of Box Springs to 1 mile east of 3 miles east.
Bickleton Highway overlay Box Springs, the fourth one down.
Okay, the fourth one down.
How far away is that from the current Bickleton Highway?
Overlay?
Yeah,
Or the widening?
yeah.
That only has a one-shot chip seal on it
Mm-hmm.
because we were planning on encompassing that maybe.
Okay.
So we'll encompass that.
Okay, good.
Okay, so where it drops down there and it was really nasty in the draw, is that the overlay? Or where we were gonna spend our own guys' force contract? Is either of these
They
covered?
did that and that'll be part of the overlay.
So that's part of the overlay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought when we originally had the discussions, we said that we always talked that that wasn't eligible for state or federal funding. Yeah, you can come up.
I wasn't gonna ask that question, but
But
yeah.
you were thinking the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
It's not eligible for the state funding through
Right.
RAP because it doesn't meet the scoring criteria to put it high enough on the list. It does meet for federal, which is what we were able to secure for this through our STPGR funds, which are gas tax funds that come back to us. And since it's in on-system road, we can apply those monies to that piece.
And it makes sense to do it because we're spending reallocated dollars, which means it's not our allocation. So we get so much a year, the county gets so much a year. This project and the other project we did Bickleton was not our allocation. It was somebody else's allocation.
That couldn't use it.
That couldn't use it. I'm not gonna say who, I know who one of them was, and I will not throw them under the bus. But I'm not sure who this is.
So this Bickleton project for next year is actually gonna be bringing in asphalt trucks to lay down actual asphalt.
Yes. Yes, not a chip seal asphalt. That is correct.
How many miles total?
My turn.
3.9,
Okay.
if I remember right.
And then the one we just did this year is, what was that?
4.2, I think, somewhere in there. Once you add all the little pieces
Yeah,
together.
so it's 7.5 miles, some 7.75 miles in the last 2 years.
It's a good section.
So were we able to use any, where it went down in there and we went in there and started working on it? Did we get to use any of that as match for this?
No match
project?
required.
No
It
match
just doesn't have
required right
match
now,
required.
no, because it's money that the feds are trying to spend. And, we were fortunate enough to be prepared. It's good we had that project because we had done all our survey. Because the turnaround for us was really quick. We had to provide projects that had work effortlessly just to get it together and get it done. So we could meet that deadline, get the funding. So we didn't lose out. We're pretty if we can use other people's money, we would prefer.
Great.
Where was this was this anywhere on the 6-year road plan for a plan before this? So that this is just getting slapped on there. It's covering an area that we knew was a known issue that we already spent money fixing.
Correct.
We spent money band-aiding.
Band-aid, yeah, fixing.
Yes. So if money becomes available, we plug in whatever fits the best for that money. May not be people's favorite project, but in this instance, we put a Band-Aid on it. Now we can fix it because it's eligible and it fit our time frame or their time frame of when we needed to deliver.
Any further questions?
A lot of money being spent in District 3.
Which is why I'm having him prepare a document that shows them exactly how much of all that purple over there is being spent in that section. Because I honestly, every time I go out there, the only thing they talk about is roads. The only thing they talk about is how they've never seen road improvements and blah, blah, blah. And my goal is to show them how much road improvements they've gotten lately.
Okay.
And I didn't mean that as a
I know.
Okay.
issue.
Well, because I think they have a point. I think they'd kind of been forgotten about for a while, so.
So if there's no more questions from the board, any further public comment anywhere? No one online?
This is all federal funding, right?
All the Bickleton Highway stuff is, yes. The Sundale State funding,
Well,
state gas tax.
we do have the Beckleton Highway widening, which is not federal funds.
Right, that's
That
correct.
is in 2024. It's a different project, but it is.
Right.
Yes, that
I wanna
is
be clear.
landfill dollars.
I thought. And road funds, it says.
Yes.
275 road funds too, right?
Yes.
The price of Sundale went up, right? What was the main cause of Sundale going up?
Inflation.
Are we going to need to look at all of our construction projects to look at how accurate we are on our numbers?
Well, we knew it when we put it together. We got the grant back in, oh boy. 17.
We did.
The crab grants take a long time to work themselves through. If you follow the crab, the way they divvy up the RAP funding, there's at least 5-year lead because there's only so much money and they have a lot more projects allocated. So you got to wait for your turn to get your project once you've gotten in. So yeah, we got it in 17. We probably we would have applied for it in 16. So 8 years, you've seen what inflation does.
Right. But I guess inflation is my concern here. Are these numbers that we have for the 7-year road plan? Do we feel that those are accurate for where the new pricing bottom is?
Yeah, we've raised them. Well, we evaluate them every year.
Right.
So we know for 2024, 2025, we're good. It's, we'll reevaluate 2026 because needs change, roads change, things happen. So we'll look at them. We look at them closer when we get closer to it. So that's why we always tell people that your project may be on the plan, but that doesn't guarantee it gets built at that time.
Or ever.
When are we actually planning on doing the normal 6-year road plan for future years? Is that like an October thing? Are we going to be doing that, moving that up early budget because we moved budget up early?
I mean, we've done it earlier, yes. I think we did it September last year, I think, but maybe not. It probably should say it.
October 24th.
October 24th, yes, whenever the board would like it done.
Past years, it has been December, I believe. So
November. We've done it as late as November. We typically do it around October.
I don't have anything else.
No, I occasionally still get the random reach out that my road in the middle of nowhere needs to be paved, and I tell them they need to show up to that, and
we get those quite regularly.
No more questions?
Nope.
Okay. I see anyone online for public comments. So we'll close the public hearing to further public testimony. Discussion by the board, optional, I think we've discussed. So a motion.
Madam Chair, we have before us the matter of the revision of the 2024 to 2029 6-year road construction program, adding the Bickleton Highway Overlay Box Springs Vicinity Project, adding the White Plastic Edge Line Project, and increasing the Sundale Old Highway 8 project to $5,293,344. My motion is to approve.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I see Sharon is with us.
I'm just here for legislative update.
Okay.
We do have an issue.
You gotta come to the mic.
We also have an issue before we go into executive session, Chair, and I want to address.
We have 15 minutes before legislative update. Would you like to?
Sure.
Uh-oh, I hope we don't have another one of those days.
So I had talked to Rob about, so we're in the process of filling some vacancies within senior services, Mount Adams Transportation, due to retirements in our drivers, long-term drivers. So and then we had an unexpected departure of another driver. So we've luckily and it was slow going to start with replacing some of those, but we did get some qualified candidates, and we do have one more upcoming retirement with a 30-year employee that will be in July. And so we actually we have one excellent candidate that we would like to offer the position to, but I would like to see about actually starting them at a step 6. And typically the 1 through 3 is allowable within the advertisement, but if I want to go higher than that, that's something that we've typically had to come and get permission.
Sometimes you do step 1 through 5. Sometimes you let departments and offices come back
if they posted at 1 through 3 and they find the unicorn at 4 or 5, she's asking for step 6. This person is very well qualified.
Yeah, so there's somebody who, one, is going to require less onboarding training wise because they're actually actively still employed with an agency in Portland. They're relocating to Goldendale because they have property here. Excellent references. I mean, in terms of in addition to just even the driver skills and training, they do training for the agency, which is even, you know, much larger than ours as well, but does the dial ride service, and which is what we're looking at, that primarily full-time position to be. And then the person also has some strong mechanical, small engine repair, different actual
Catalytic
automotive
converter repair.
automotive experience. And so although we
Welding.
we are using, you know, the county shop and then other mechanics, that having a staff person that has some of those strong skills, that's not a skill set we've typically been lucky enough to
So
attract.
my $1 million question is, and I think I already know the answer to it. This position is paid for 100% out of grant funds, correct? Or are there county
None of our
dollars?
positions are 100% grant funds because there's county match with all of our.
Right, but I
grants.
think
Yeah.
the match is paying for the vans essentially.
Yeah, so no, we have operational match too. So what it is, you know, in comparing to the position we're replacing for, bringing this person in even at a step 6 is going to be less than what our departing position is at, because obviously they've been here 30 years. So they're at the top end. This is bringing somebody midpoint, plus the person's that's leaving has, you know, the top longevity bonus, which is another $4,000 a year. So the pay difference with the person that's leaving, so our departing employee is at like $24.18 an hour. This would be bringing in the new person at $21.48.
And
So
that's-
it's
Right, I was just, I guess,
several dollars an hour.
I
less
was
hourly.
trying to point out that very little of this person's payroll is actually paid by county tax dollars.
Yeah, and what Karen's talking about, Sharon, sorry, what Sharon's talking about is the budget impact, which is always important. From the HR side, we acknowledge it's unusual to go above step 5, but not unheard of. And in this case, we believe it's warranted, so that she can, because she's going through some turnover that she's been telling us about for quite a while, that anticipated some turnover and some unexpected turnover. So this gets somebody out on the road up and running pretty quickly and pretty high caliber. So
How does this fit with our other drivers and their time and experience? And is there going to be any bad feelings that you can see?
Well, I mean, there shouldn't be, in terms of, again, we've not we have in the past when we've had somebody that had specific transit driving experience, we've brought them in at like a 3. But it's usually been definitely not this level of experience, or them coming with certifications and that already, and then also the engine repair and kind of the automotive background. So that's why I'm asking for something, you know, kind of beyond that. Most of the folks that we have, you know, as drivers, they've come to us maybe as former large truck drivers or school bus drivers, less direct experience with doing the program where you're actually knowing already how to do the strap down of the wheelchairs and the passenger assistance with some of the disabled clients, as well as a lot of the customer service. And again, the excellent references with current employer.
it's always a risk. It's a good question, but it's always a risk.
And I would say out of the other candidates that have been interviewed for the position, this is by far, and to not have to kind of batten this person down, we're basically back to the drawing board because the other candidates are not.
I mean, I want to give you the chance to keep talking and change my mind.
And as I said,
But
don't do it.
The person I'm
don't do
replacing-
it. Because you have my yes vote unless you somehow convince me out of it.
So Dave Sauter used to say.
It's gonna be less than what we're paying the person they're
What
replacing.
Dave Sauter used to say is this, and I stole this from him, that says, never miss a good chance to shut up.
Not the one I was thinking of, but.
Right. Dave, anything else? I'm good.
Okay.
I do appreciate that question, Commissioner. I think it's one going forward, we always need to be mindful of. So, but she has thought of it.
And then the other one is just that we had a 0.6 FT part-time driver position down in White Salmon that is left.
We need to post it.
And wanted to know though, if we have an internal casual driver candidate that is interested in that, can we just, we would typically ask within, but I don't know if to get permission to fill that position. I mean, it's in our org chart. It's one that
I think to be safe.
we're budgeted for.
I think to be safe, get permission to fill it, and then if you can fill it from within as a promotion, that's, and if not, then we could post it, not have to come back. Does that make sense?
Okay, so is that?
I already
okay?
gave you
Good.
one, yes. You want two of them?
Replace.
Yes,
Yes,
two today.
we're on a roll.
Jeez.
Unless you want to come drive.
Oh,
us.
yes.
No, don't you.
I might need to drive next year. You might give me as an applicant.
With that, anything else?
I think that's it.
2 yeses.
She's
Run,
trying-
run.
On a roll.
Don't go for 3.
Next week I'll be back.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay. Where are we at? 124. Any new business, anybody? We're still waiting on Zach, I think.
I think he schedules his stuff like really tight window.
I had a good meeting yesterday with the mayors of White Salmon and Bingen in regards to green energy and what the future of power is. And we had all sat together in an invited meeting with the PUD with the presentation that they have about what's happening with power service in the future and what's happening with green energy and where are we looking for power and how does that relate to our planning efforts? Where do we see ourselves in the future as a county, as a community, as the port? So we committed to get back together once a month and start planning what do we look like in the future and how can we help each other and how can we help the communities and individual plan to address power issues. So it was a good meeting.
So is this outside of planning or is this something that we can tie in with the grant we just got? What do you think?
I'm going to talk to Scott today.
Okay.
And in fact, I would like to invite Mr. Smith from the PUD to bring his presentation downstairs. And I was coordinating with Scott to see when he'd have an evening that we could do it, open it up to the public. And again, the mayors and their staff and whoever would like to come to kind of tie everything together. So I hope to have that meeting downstairs soon. It's a great presentation. Anybody that's listening, if you haven't seen the PUD's presentation on future power, it's worth sitting in on what we're facing.
The scary part,
Yeah, it is.
the high expense part.
The high expense part and the lack of availability. And that we're not being able to produce fast enough or plan fast enough for where we're headed in 3 to 5 years. It's a good presentation. What else? Anybody? Oh, good. Right on time. He has 4 minutes. Are you guys ready for Zach? Okay. Zach, if you're ready, we'll move to an update from Potts and Associate, our Zach, our legislative workshop.
I certainly can be. How are we doing today?
Good to hear from you. Thank you for being flexible with us.
Oh, of course. I logged into the last meeting and I saw that there were over 50 people on the Zoom and your room was full. And I said, am I this popular? Wow. Jeez. I listened to that meeting. That was an interesting discussion. It'd be interesting to see how this all works out. So as we're kind of getting ready for next legislative session, I realize we're not even halfway through the year yet, coming into January next year, but I think it would be really good to start getting some priorities listed for you guys that we can start sharing with different legislators, whether it be at committee days later on or just individually here throughout the summer, so that they have a really good idea of what you guys need. I think it'd be really good way to do this is make sure that the legislators, even downtown Seattle legislators, know what the rural communities need. We've watched this for years and it's just missing. And especially with, I know you guys are aware of kind of the divide that made itself very apparent last year in Wasac. The association had to take some, let's say, softer lines on different things than they normally would in their advocacy and education. It was kind of the year for that. I completely understand how they did that. It's totally fine, but I think it's important to make sure that you guys and your neighboring counties, but I mean, we work with quite a few, but I mean, I want to make sure that you guys, your voice is heard and the things that you guys might need coming up are kind of at the forefront. We are going to have quite a few new legislators, especially in the House on the Republican side. I don't remember what the number was, but there's something like 19 LAs so far that are not going to have a boss next year on the Republican Party alone. So we're going to have a lot of new blood over there. And I think it's going to be a good year to make sure that you guys are out there with your land use issues, potential criminal justice issues beyond what the Association of Counties is doing. So love to hear what you guys are looking at, get some initial kind of objectives in place maybe, or at least some ideas of what we can talk with people about, and then start getting some feedback from legislators on both sides of the aisles in both houses.
Thank you. Do either of you have suggestions? Jake, do you have things you'd like?
Thank you, Zach. Are you planning to get involved with, so at our legislative policy discussion, we added the county coroner, the unfunded mandate. Are you going to be able to support Wasac in our rural counties? It was one of the top choices from the rural areas in pushing for some funding for the coroner positions for each county.
Absolutely. I can't see any of my counties having any issue with that in any way.
Okay. And then we also, another one that got passed was amending FSEC legislation to comply with the GMA and state water codes. And I think that kind of morphed a little bit, but that's one that was the rural areas that hit as one of the top priorities.
Got it. Okay.
And then of course, the discussion about the actual taxation issues and the transfer of the taxation burden. We're creating a task force, and so we're hoping to create legislation, but anything that you can do to help push those priorities that I believe this board also put forward would go a long ways.
Got it. And you're talking specifically on that one is with that's centered around the renewable energy resources and the personal property versus real estate.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. And we'll follow that task force. I don't remember what's their timeline on that task force for their first report. Do you remember?
We haven't got together for a meeting yet, but.
Oh, okay. When that meeting, that task force meets, I don't know if they would allow outside attendees, but would you please forward that to me? If they do, I would love to attend.
I will do that.
Or at least read the reports if they won't let outsiders join. Sometimes they did that with the Wolf Management Group sometimes. And so, yeah, no, I'd love to join on that. Right now, everything that you guys are talking about, the taxation issue here around personal real property stuff, we haven't heard a whole lot from most of the counties, obviously, it's where they have the wind resources and they're talking about putting these solar panels and stuff in. Have you guys had any conversations with the feds with respect to the way that those are funded, grants, and having the county be a component on those grants, and or any tax breaks that come in from the federal level?
We haven't talked about any of the federal tax breaks at all.
Okay. That may be a conversation that we want to take to the congressional delegation, just like the House members. Just kind of ask them, hey, what do you guys think about this? And is there any way to carve out some of these rural areas? You know, if they're going to subsidize a wind farm or a solar farm or something like that, you know, there may be some consideration there for local infrastructure services, things, you know, just, we dealt with that in Douglas County, I believe, with having to put in a substation and man it, with one of their wind farms or something. That was a big deal about 8 years ago. So that might be something we want to talk with them about as well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Let's see, are there any other, I mean, just at the local level, roads, streets, anything that we might put in the transportation side of things to have those conversations with, whether it be CRAB or the transportation chairs or anything along those lines?
Zach,
Oh, just one thing. It's not on my calendar, but we've got the Wasatch General Membership Meeting that I think Zach was really pushing on. It's June 26th from 1 to 3. We got emails about it, but I don't think it didn't hit our calendar. So I just want to make my
Okay.
teammates aware.
Thank you.
And is that one in Ellensburg?
It says scheduled Zoom meeting. It doesn't.
Oh,
say-
scheduled Zoom meeting. Oh, look at that. They're not even doing them in person.
In person at the Yakima Arboretum.
Oh, I'll definitely be on Zoom on that one.
Yeah. That's the discussion, the next big discussion that after last November.
Right.
Got it. You know, and that'll be interesting. I think we'll have to kind of watch how this plays out within Wasac. There may be an opportunity or a need to take more, you know, individual action here, just depending on how their hands are tied or what they can do. We'll see with their new processes. So, are you guys feeling any pressure right now from the state, whether it be from the agencies, ecology, fish and wildlife, agriculture, anything that you're seeing right now where they're leaning on you guys for anything?
No, I think our big one right now is we're gonna be dealing with the uplisting of the Western gray squirrel. And that's gonna have a huge impact on the residents of Klickitat County.
Yeah, okay. Are you guys doing anything on that you could include me in, or at least shoot me information to share? I can tell you, we are definitely losing some of our advocates, at least in the House this year, specifically around, I guess, that subject, the protection and local rights. A lot of our wolf advocates are retiring. So they'd be the first ones I'd go to, but I'd be happy to share these concerns, of course.
Yeah,
with
I'll
new seat
get
members.
together with you offline, Zach.
Okay, that works for me.
I recently had a conversation with Commissioner McKinney from Yakima County. And
Yep.
She'd worked on a Senate Bill 5992 in regard to green energy and water. Are you familiar with that one?
I am familiar with the just overall premise of that particular bill. Yeah.
Okay, and so that was the one Jake was referring to in the beginning, that you'll be working on that for us then. Is that,
There's a little bit more to it now. It's more with the GMA than just the water, but it's growing as
okay,
time goes
that's
on.
good. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't hear the bill number, so I just want to make sure that was the same one that's going forward and you're helping work on that. That's great.
Of course, yeah. And you know, it's with respect to those, it's always interesting as we try and get all the counties on board, and we've had to kind of adjust some of the representation for the different counties that we have worked for and had to let some go just because they started to not align with the larger group of the rural areas. So fortunately, I don't see any of that on the horizon. You know, most of the issues right now are pretty much rural county wide. I can tell you the one thing that really gets in the way is fish. As soon as the fish issue comes into play, we usually end up caught in the middle. So, and we've worked with Commissioner McKinney quite a bit this last year on trying to get some of this stuff, at least the educational process. So she's a really great resource, and we'll continue working with her.
That's all I had.
So, is there anything else that you guys have on your kind of on your agenda here? I can go through these. We've got the coroner stuff, the FSEC and GMA, the taxation, specifically that task force. Don't forget to share that with me if I can join. General membership meeting, of course, will be there. Nothing really from the state agencies. We'll talk offline about the gray squirrel, and then I'll make sure I touch base with Commissioner McKinney and see if there's anything we can do to support that, and of course let you guys know. I'm sure you'll hear about it.
Our senior services set in today. Sharon, did you have anything on your horizon?
Actually, on the
Okay.
transportation side, so
Sure.
I don't know, one of the things with us, with public transportation, with both our dial-a-ride and our fixed route public transit and our work with kind of by state and with the Gorge Transit, which involves, you know, working with ODOT and WASDOT and a couple of the counties in Oregon, as well as a couple of, you know, Klickitat and Skamanias, we definitely see some pretty big differences between Washington and Oregon on the support, I guess, more fair distribution of the public transit monies, and there's been a concerted effort, I think, in Oregon to get more out to the rural areas to help support, because again, like with Klickitat County, we're not a transit agency, a formal transit agency, and we're dependent on applying for, you know, competitive grants through the Consolidated Grant Program, Regional Mobility Grant, and then there's always the match. And then where it's getting a little more challenging in terms of some of the applications and the push, you know, the plan to move to electrification of vehicles, is we can't even move that route because we don't have the infrastructure within Klickitat County or the funds and the expertise to actually apply and move forward with getting those, or even to be able to access some of those funds. So I wasn't sure if there's, you know, other rural counties that kind of address that the funds tend to go towards, you know, Puget Sound area. And then we're really, even in our consolidated grant process, we're competing against, you know, Skamania County. You know, we have to rank our projects against each other in our different regional transportation planning organization. So I was just curious in terms of whether there's been any discussions regarding, you know, public transit and support and that for rural communities.
So the answer to your question is there has been, let's not say discussion about it necessarily, but in terms of how to solve it, but there's been a lot of complaints about, you know, how do we get this money when electrification is not even an issue? I mean, it's just not a possibility for us out in the rural areas. So, kind of in concert with that, some of the other issues that we've had that are kind of brewing right now are just overall unrealistic requirements that are set on some of these grants. Electrification is a very good example. But overall, in general, you know, when things are tailored specifically to the state or the side of the state where, you know, the west side, where there's a lot of electricity and there's a lot of people, a lot of resources, The other one we've dealt with in that particular area, and we don't really know how to address these, is the diversity, like the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. And they're talking about statewide equity and distributing funds to areas with a lot of minorities, for example. Well, in some areas, there aren't a lot of minorities in some of these areas, so those funds aren't available. So we're talking about equitable distribution of funds becomes a very tough conversation. I think that this one probably has a little bit more legs with respect to the transportation department. There's not a lot of motivation right now pre-election. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. We can make some predictions on who's going to get elected at the state level here this fall, but I would not expect a red tide, as they would say, and see the Republicans pull the governor and everything. So I would expect that they're still going to push on the electrification of the transportation. So we may want to make some comments with respect to what do we do when the infrastructure isn't available, and it's just not a reality for you guys to be able to do that. You just don't have it. And then you start talking about, well, if we do have the infrastructure, where are we going to go with an electric truck or electric bus? You know, I mean, I don't live in a rural county. I live in Spokane County, and my bus ride was an hour every day. I don't know that an electric bus would make my bus route.
Well, and the other challenge is even getting repair and parts for, I mean, we have
Yeah.
that challenge with even just getting gas vehicles repaired and, and not having to travel distances to get work done on them when you've got just even the expertise for that out in the rural areas.
I was going to say, I imagine that, if you guys had people working in your shop, they're probably not trained on the electric vehicles, I would guess. Be a training expense for you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Our shop is only a road department shop. We don't have any shop for our non-road fund vehicles.
Oh, okay. So that makes it even more challenging if you're trying to either share resources or come up with it yourselves. Now, that's probably a good question to ask. I'm going to put that on the list here.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, and there's been some pretty obvious differences with the rural counties on the Oregon side in terms of what they're able to tap into for public transit versus what like Skamania and Klickitat can under WASDOT. And it's, because they operate differently and wondering why there isn't more focus on, getting that out, because a lot of the rural areas have the higher rates of poverty and that too, where you do need transit. So transportation resources, but that's one of the main ones I had statewide.
Okay.
Have you, when you're working with the Oregon Department of Transportation, is there anybody in specific that you found who's really good to work with, or who I might point as a resource?
I can get that to you because, Kathy Fitzpatrick, who's our mobility manager with MCED, Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, and she's the mobility manager and works with both WASDOT and ODOT. That was some of the things that were more notable that she started recognizing and was asking. And it's definitely more of a state-driven one, but I can find out from her, with ODOT, who would be the person that could indicate, because it seems like what she'd expressed is there'd been just much more of a concerted effort for the transportation monies to get out to the rural areas. So, Hood River and Wasco County and Sherman County and making more of that available where it's very obviously different. And so I can find out who specifically with ODOT would be a person to reach out to.
Gosh, that would be really helpful. Thank you. And part of the reason that's helpful is because, let's face it, our legislators are if they're not knowledgeable about the issue, they can get a little bit lazy. And if we can find somebody who's already done the work and put a framework in place that you guys think might work a little bit better, we could suggest that framework and at least get them to look at it.
And I think it's that piece of the consolidated grant program. I mean, there's benefits in terms of that they usually have like federal and state monies and then they kind of distribute. But again, when we have to rank projects under that program in our RTPOs and we're ranking against each other. And then anytime we have a new project, again, that's going to compete against funds. And a lot of times we've been fortunate during kind of additional funding that we've been able to be ranked pretty high, but there have been years, and it could get more challenging. It's always with the funding cycles that we could end up where our projects don't get ranked high enough to get funding. And especially if we're trying to do new or expansion services. So.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think that, again, it sounds kind of like some of those requirements, even in the money around electrification, is just not realistic. I mean, you're never going to rank in that.
Right. And that's always one of the questions in there. And it's more and more weighted, or, that I have to provide more detailed explanations as to why we can't do electric vehicles.
Apparently, the people looking at the evaluations have not visited Klickitat County.
Interesting one. Republic is planning on introducing their first electric truck to drive up the grade, being specially built. So I can't wait to see if it gets 3/4 the way up and then comes back down very slowly, or.
And they're doing their own charging station.
But they're having to be specially made to take on that grade. So it could be an interesting.
Crazy.
Are they is it this summer they're supposed to be testing it?
This summer,
yeah.
I mean, if they can
That'll
get up
be an
that hill, we
interesting
can
thing
get
to
on
watch.
the road, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's that'll be interesting to watch. I'd be real interested to hear that report.
Well, yeah, I think you're gonna have the electric vehicles, and then you're also gonna have to add a large tow behind generator. When the battery runs out, you can go out there with your gasoline powered and charge it up for them.
Well, the trains are all electric. They just have a big diesel generator on there and the motors are electric. I mean, you could do the same thing. So have you guys, on a little bit different subject, have you guys had any struggles or any issues surrounding the 988 systems? Whether it be with staffing it or meeting the requirements? Have you guys had a lot of activity? Are there any issues there at all?
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything.
We need to talk to our EM manager.
Yep.
Got it.
I don't see him online.
Because I do know that some of the counties literally just have a phone in the courthouse somewhere that rings to that number, and I don't think it's been marketed real well, but as you start getting into the more urban areas, I think they've had a little more activity. And I know they were putting some requirements on it that could be kind of a pain. Have you guys seen any impact from the Affordable Connectivity Program losing funding at the federal level? Has that impacted any of your guys' planning or development and broadband infrastructure development or anything like that?
Not that I know of, sir.
Okay. That's good to know. Well, I mean, I think I've got a pretty good list here for you guys. I'm going to make some notes and kind of follow up. Please feel free to shoot me the information and invites if you guys can to any of those conversations, specifically as the work groups start going here over the interim. And what I'll do is we'll kind of touch base with the offices that we know are going to stick around. And if we kind of get some inkling of which legislative aides might stick around with the new members, we may be able to start educating some of the aides ahead of the actual election as well. Because if I remember right, gosh, they have the election and then they have committee days like right after. So, I mean, they just throw them right in. So it's going to be drinking from a fire hose for some of these new members. And it'd be nice to at least get them up to speed as quickly as we can, or get their legislative aides up to speed.
Great.
So,
Well,
well, if
thank
you
you.
guys don't have anything else that's glaring on the list right now, I can let you get to your next agenda items. I really appreciate it. Of course, if anything pops up or, you know, any of these issues develop into something that's a little bit different, please do let me know. And we'll come back around and get a plan together and start educating some of these legislators. And, you know, I definitely recommend if you guys can kind of put together some of the priorities, you know, maybe even around, I mean, just anything. It might not be a bad idea to invite some legislators to visit, whether they come or not. Hard to say, but we could certainly invite some of them so you can say you did.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Of course. So, all right. Well, thank you guys very much. We really appreciate your time. As
you
always, call or email anytime, and we'll probably see you on a Zoom here in about 22 days. Exactly.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Okay, the last thing on our agenda is executive session. Did you want to do a motion to check out after that or
We just make a
come back?
note. Do you have anything else, Commissioner Christopher, for updates? So just make a note that we're going to shut the Zoom down, enter an executive session, and
We won't be.
doing any business when we get back other than.
Okay, we're going to enter into executive session.
I did have one though.
Okay.
Okay, I have one. Are we going to get a verbal to start advertising for behavioral health positions? For the SUD position? Our goal is to be operating by July 1. Did you guys get a copy of all the positions yet that you've reviewed? I know you've been out on for the SUD P position, right? And have we reviewed that? That's what I'm asking for. Do we want to give that verbal to post for it so that we can? Is there any holdups to that anybody can see? See me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
I like to sit here sometimes and just keep my mouth shut and see if it's yes, and we move on, because that happens a lot too. I don't have any problem with it other than the fact that she's not here to ask. So I very much worry that we're trying to do the same thing that we did with the last mental health and step it up in 3 days. And it's gonna be a problem moving too fast. So I worry about that without her here, but yeah. She's ready to roll. Okay. Yeah, fine.
Great.
Just want to make sure we're not waiting a week when we've got timelines that we've wanted to hit. And we've had 2 years to work on this part. It's not like the last time where we had 60 days.
The only thing I have a huge question about is I want to be able to read the official grant application for this comp plan thing before we as a board choose to sign it.
We're not talking about behavioral health now, right?
No, but that's the only other issue I can say that might be before the chair for a signature next week. And all I've seen is a draft.
I thought we've
document.
we put in a grant application. Now it's a contract agreement.
Correct.
Yeah, you want to see read the full contract.
I want to read the contract
Okay.
before we agree to the contract, which it is my understanding will be on his desk for a signature next week. All I've seen is a sample contract, which doesn't tell me anything. Because, you know, next thing you know, they're adding in you must facilitate this and that. And so I would like to be able to read that before we as a board authorize the chair to sign it.
I think with a contract, it has to come from before the board, and Yeah, we have to be able, we have to
Right, but
see.
it's supposed to be like by the 14th, so that's,
Yeah.
well, that's my guess is it's gonna be next week. So I'm trying to prepare everybody to read it and make sure you understand it for discussion next week.
Got it.
Got it.
So is that, did we have consensus on
Yeah.
posting?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we finished that.
Or Scott's gonna get blown out of the water again on another day.
So,
Now I'm good.
and he's back. So moving forward, ready? Okay, so we'll move into executive session with Human Resource and Administrative Service Rob Van Cleve in accordance with RCW 42.30.110 Pren 1, Pren G, to review the performance, discipline, and qualifications of a public employee. Issues of general nature will be discussed in open session, and we would like to note that we will be turning off Zoom and not coming back after the close.
Does collective bargaining come under that letter? Yeah, this is collective bargaining. I'm sorry.
Okay. This one? Okay, so we quoted it as G. Okay, no. D, negotiations or performance of public bid contracts, no.
No,
Discuss.
actually, it's
legal
not
counsel.
executive session. We're going into
Closed session.
closed session. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's closed.
Okay,
It's closed session, so there isn't a reference.
okay, okay, so we'll
Not
put,
executive session. Thank you.
and so we will see you all. There is no workshop this week, and we will see you all next Tuesday.
I'm just looking, trying to pull it up. How long did you say?
I did not say how long.
Well, how long did you say?
How many? 15 minutes?
Start with 15.
Okay.
All right, I'll set a timer.
Red Bull, we're up.